so I can go ahead and read the thing. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, paragraphs 18 to 25, and as amended in Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2009, the Wetlands Protection Act, and to the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaw of July 86 and its regulations of January 2000, the Wellfleet Conservation Commission will hold public hearings on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 at 5 p.m. with the business meeting starting at 4 p.m. via remote meeting pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely. So currently we have Barbara Brennicell, we have Benjamin Fairbank. I got it this time. And Mike Fisher. So we have a quorum. I would like to start with Mr. Silverman. I understand we're going to start with you this afternoon.
Yes, hello, Mr. Shreves. I'm Dan Silverman, my wife Janice Gray. We own the property in question as in the name of Silver Gray LLC, and that's technically who owns the property. And what we're asking to do in a recent storm, I'm not even sure exactly which one, a very large pine tree came down, a diseased pine tree came down behind the building that I use for my workshop. And when I saw that, I realized that there are several other very large pine trees which are diseased, toward the end of their life. It's typical of the pitch pines here, one in particular, but 3 others as well. And if they came down in the same direction, they potentially pose a serious damage, potential for serious damage to the building. This one here is the one that's closest to the building. What's under the blue tarp there is we're actually storing a car for a friend who lost their license and then they can't drive for a while. So, but that's just there temporarily. So the tree that you see there in the middle of the, that's the one that I'm most concerned about. That's roughly 10 feet from the building. And then there's these ones, these 3 are the other ones. Again, potential of hitting the building, and also my neighbor's property, my next door neighbor, just beyond that fence there. So what we're asking is permission to cut at the very least the biggest one that's nearest the building, and perhaps the other 3 as well. I don't know what requirements you have beyond that. This is
where is this exactly, Dan?
This is on Eric's Way, which is right opposite Money Hill. It's upland or up gradient of Perch Pond in the north end of town. Perch Pond, I think, is technically the wetland that's closest to it. Barbara, you should be aware that it's downstream from where you live, I think.
Right. I know where this is.
Okay. So this is the back. This is at the very back of Eric's Way. There are 2 properties at the rear of Eric's Way, ours and another property belonging to Sally Bridge. And behind us, Jerry and Barbara Austin, if that helps you orient, they're on the lowland behind us.
So I think Doug went out, Hillary. Did he do an assessment?
Yes, he did go out and he sent, I believe he sent an email to everyone. He was able to capture a couple trees. He spoke with Danny Silverman and he felt that the project was fine as proposed.
Did he feel that there was any potential for mitigation of the carbon and the habitat?
He did not comment on that.
I think there might be potential based on the one shot that we saw with the fence, that there may be some shrubs, native shrubs planted in front of the fence or around the property that could mitigate for 4 trees.
What if it if it's comes into consideration on this, we did talk to a landscaper, to Jeremy Young, about a week or week and a half ago. And our intent is to do a much more significant project, which will be coming before you in total once we kind of figure out what we're doing. The property, nothing's been done to the property in quite a few years. We've owned it for about 8 years, and we'd like to basically do some improvements to the landscaping there. And certainly the potential is for doing native plantings there, if it's a matter of offsetting, taking these trees down. I don't know how much carbon they're capturing, to be honest with you, given their age. But would it be possible to take a good faith promise that we will do that in the future to let this project go forward in a timely fashion?
I think that seems reasonable to me. Barbara, how do you feel about it?
I don't know how we word that or put it into the conditions, or maybe Hillary can help with that. I mean, I'm okay with that whole idea, but I think unless something's codified or in writing or, is enforceable, handshakes don't work in this town very much.
So we can put a condition on the jurisdictional opinion that a mitigation plan will be submitted. Dan, when do you think you're going to get going with Jeremy? Because we could specify a particular time, and if we don't have it in a particular time, then we could send enforcement.
I don't think for sure on that.
Yeah,
It's up to the engineering that he can get a hold of. He says there are a number of engineers on the Cape that he would normally consult with who are retiring. And so he now has one that he is working with. But he says, as we all know, so many more people have come to the town during this time. He says he's pretty much out straight, but promised to get back to us.
Yeah, we're hoping to start this within if not within this calendar year, certainly within a year. I mean, if sooner than later, if possible.
So
Yeah,
I
that's our intent.
It's strictly his ability to get around to it.
Sure. So I think we should require the submission of a mitigation planting plan within 6 months. And if we don't have it within 6 months, you can come back before us and describe to us all the reasons why you don't have it. And we will then take further action at that time.
So I'm not familiar. So what is a mitigation plan? What is it that we need to do?
Not sure what you're saying.
So you'll need to submit to us in writing what you're going to plant, where you're taking these 4 big pine trees down. And the concern is nutrient uptake by the trees. When you take them down, they cease to uptake the nutrients. So we'd like to see some vegetation, be it shrubs or small trees, whatever you would choose to plant that's native, going in the location where the bigger trees are coming down.
They would have to go in that same location, or?
They should not be as tall growing, so you wouldn't have to manage them. So a shorter growing species.
But I don't think they have to go in the same place exactly. Just on
No,
the property.
no.
No,
No,
come up with a plan in the future.
If you
plan needs
drive
to
by
follow.
the property, you can see that it could really use some cleaning up and improvement, just in terms of the way it looks. It has, as Danny said, it hasn't been. I don't think anything has been done there in years and years. And we're trying to make it look a little bit better, but also knowing where we are located within this area, we're all for trying to get some native plantings there. And Jeremy mentioned that as well. Once he realized where it was in this zone, he said, well, that's what we would be going after. So he seems awfully responsible.
Yeah.
As a landscape.
Let me ask you a question. In terms of removing the trees, can we leave the trees there to rot naturally?
You mean just not remove them? Just let them
Cut them, but leave the cut trees on the bank.
Yeah, of course you can. That's always an option. They're not infested with the beetle or anything, correct?
No, I just wondered if that, I mean, does that have an ecological advantage that rather than remove the biomass from the area, that you're leaving it in place?
Well,
Well,
they
it's
won't take up nutrients because they've been cut. They
Right.
still serve as some wildlife habitat. So there is a function and a role for those down trees.
I mean, what's the commission's preference on that?
I
Clearly,
think we
advantage to
prefer
us.
leaving them down rather than remove them if they're not diseased as habitat for various animals.
Okay, I mean, that would certainly be I mean, clearly it's less costly to leave them in place than to have them taken away. So I mean, it's a win-win for us if that's okay with the commission.
And I also would like to say that since you're taking down trees, shrubbery is nice, but it would be nice to replace them with some trees, just because trees take up more carbon than shrubbery and also absorb more nutrients. So that would be a preference also.
What are the native trees that people typically plant? I mean, I don't think
I
people.
think, I think you could take that up with Jeremy, who's going to do your work, and he could provide a list, or the department could provide a list of those kind of small trees that won't get too big, that won't, not like pines or oaks that can lean on your house, on the house, or create damage. So there's some possibilities there.
Okay.
So I like Hillary's idea of allowing this jurisdictional opinion with the provision that in 6 months we see some kind of a plan, and if nothing comes in 6 months, then come back and explain why, and then it's possible to extend that further. But then you're getting into the fall and your planting season's going to be over, late fall. So you want to have something done in that time period.
Okay, we're fine with that.
Yeah, we certainly are fine with that.
Yeah. Do we need to, so we need to come back once we decide what we want to plant, we need to come back for approval from the commission, or is that?
Yes, because I'm assuming that the planting will also be in our jurisdiction. If the tree cutting is in our jurisdiction, I'm assuming that some of the planting will also be in our jurisdiction.
Well, virtually all of it. I mean.
Right.
Yeah,
So yes, you'd
virtually
have
all
to,
of the property
you'd
is-
have to come back with, Hillary, I don't know if this has to be a separate JO or a separate, maybe it's just,
Just as simple to do it as a jurisdictional opinion.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
okay.
Okay,
That
and then
sounds-
it may be easiest to do this separate from a much larger scale plan for the property as a whole. Just deal
Yeah.
with it as a standalone project, come back with a mitigation plan for this by itself.
Mhm.
Okay, is that satisfactory?
I think that's great, because it sounds like this is on a shorter time frame than
Yeah.
whatever larger scale plans you have.
Okay, and when can we go ahead and cut the trees? What do we need?
At any point.
Okay, we get something from you in writing or email?
Nope, we just keep the jurisdictional opinion on file here at the department. You can go ahead and do that.
All right.
And then we have an inspection done when the trees are cut but before the plantings are done, or just
No, we
after?
generally don't come out and have a look unless there's something in question. So you could just take the trees down and get back to us with your mitigation plan within 6 months' time.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before we
Do we have
vote on
to-
that, Leon, it looks like Judah Hearn has her hand raised, so I'm assuming she'd like to speak about this.
Okay.
I just have a question, similar to Danny's. Is there any kind of guidance about how you offset this carbon thing? And also, to ask Barbara, you said because he's coming before you to cut these trees down, if people weren't cutting trees down and were, say, planting non-native things within your jurisdiction, how would you know? Because my neighbor's been doing that and I'm told you have no jurisdiction over that.
Well,
We have
I'll just answer that question. We don't go around inspecting all the properties in Wellfleet. So unless a project comes to us and we get to do a site visit, we would not know unless someone reports it. But we're not really the environmental police.
Well, this is within 50 feet of a precious shellfish bed, and I have gone before you, and I'm told that you can't do anything about it. So they're planting non-native things. I mean, to expect someone who's trying to do the right thing, like Mr. Silverman, to say, I'm cutting these trees down, and you're putting these vague mitigation rules, which I'd like to know how you decide that, but it just seems like if someone then calls you and says within 50 feet, someone's planting non-native species, you should do a call. It's not just anywhere, it's within the buffer zone.
Let me just answer one question about how do you do the mitigation planting? If you look at our regulations, there are guidelines about how many shrubs you plant to offset the carbon in one tree, depending on the size of the tree, the girth of the tree. So there are formulas for that. So when they come back with their plan, that will be reviewed. So I'll answer that question. I can't answer the question about people planting non-native vegetation.
Well, could you consider it as a group going forward? Because there's a lot of that going on within the buffer zone.
Hillary, can you help us out here?
Well, I could try to. I mean, I think it depends on the scale of the project and, the intensity of the planting. But a lot of times people go and put in an ornamental shrub or, some other non-native species in increments of 1 or 2, maybe 3. And it's not a road we've chosen to go down just because the effects aren't as large. So usually when somebody comes to us to remove vegetation, that's when we require the replanting of vegetation as mitigation. And when we require replanting, we require the native species, not ornamentals or something that's non-native.
Okay, so when my neighbor plants a non-native tree to block my view, am I going to be able to come to you and you're going to have some jurisdiction? Yes or no?
It's difficult.
I'd like to know the answer.
I would say I would not encourage the commission to go down the road of checking up on every single planting.
Hillary, we are 50 feet within Blackfish Creek. This is not every single. They have a Title V they grandfathered out. Come on. You're making Mr. Silverman replant down Eric's Way, because he's come to you to cut down some trees, and you're letting people who don't do that do whatever they want.
Mr. Chair, I think we should probably go back to formal procedures about getting recognized.
Yes. If you want to speak, please ask to be recognized. But right now, I think
Sure,
we
just please consider it for a future item, because when you start asking us to upgrade our septic systems and you're not consistent, you're not going to have community support, and that's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve Silverman, the JO to cut down 4 trees with a mitigation planting plan due within 6 months.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I, Leon, also vote yes. So good luck.
Thank
You can
very
take your
much.
trees.
We'll be back to you within the time frame you specified.
Mr. Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry if I'm late. The notice I got was that the meeting started at 5 o'clock, but I'm not sure if I need to be here for the DOC certificate of compliance.
No, this is, yeah, we're not, that's a hearing. We'll be doing that at 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was unsure what the schedule was here.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is a business meeting where we.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Hillary,
Yes.
you suggested,
Next up, I think we should take the Lawrence Kaplan property at 135 Old Churro Road. This has been before us for an order of conditions, several years back, it feels like now. And most recently, we had a couple complaints come in, and we had seen Mr. Kaplan shortly before December. I think we saw him in November and asked him to have a survey done of the property and submit to us the deviations from the approved plan. He has since hired Paul Shea to work on his behalf, and Paul Shea submitted a letter to you all, which I think you've gotten. I can pull up on the screen, and if any of the commissioners have any questions before we turn it over to Paul, I would ask them now.
I did not get that letter.
Yeah, I didn't either.
We emailed it out. We got it at the end of March, so we did email it out a while back.
Still did not get it because I put all these in a file and I did not get this one.
Okay, well, then we can review it in full detail at this moment with Paul.
Okay, well, this is Mr. Kaplan, and Mr. Shea is my expert witness. Should we have Mr. Shea? First of all, my question is this meeting being recorded?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, good. My next question is, do you wish to have Mr. Shea read the letter in its entirety to the commission?
He could read it, or he could describe everything that's contained in it.
Well, I want to make this an official part of the record, and I'm sorry that not everybody has a copy of this letter. It was sent out on March 23rd, as you know. Mr. Shea, do you want to read the letter to the commissioner, or should I?
Well, I'm not sure I have to read. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have to read the whole letter. I think I can summarize the key parts that the commission's the most interested in.
I think that would be.
I would like, excuse me, I'll try to do this quickly, but I would like to read the letter to the commission because I'm uncomfortable with the fact that various members of the commission have not read the letter. So with the permission of the commission, I will commence to read the letter. Is that okay?
I would prefer that we just hear the summary. We don't need to read the whole thing. We have it, it's in record.
I understand that, but if people have not seen
Kaplan,
Mr.
we have a lot to do this today.
I get that, but this letter should have been distributed to everyone. All right, Mr. Shea, please, would you please summarize what your letter says?
Kaplan asked me to look at the property at the, he gave me a copy of the order of conditions. He gave me a copy of the approved site plan by J.C. Ellis Design. I went out and reviewed it. I found a couple of areas of work that were not on the original notice of intent application. Basically the house itself and the septic system have all been built in compliance with the order conditions issued by the commission. There's a front door and a side door where two small landings and steps have been built that I think was a question for the commission. And at the back of the house, which is basically overlooking the wetland being an isolated vegetated wetland located at the tallest slope at the back of the property, at the back of the house. There is a very narrow deck landing area that has been put in, running parallel with the house, there's some sliding glass doors back there, very narrow, it's like 2 feet wide with a couple of stairs coming down to the ground level. This is within the approved work area that the commission approved. So the steps and the landing at the back, landing on the side door, and the front steps, which faces the road, those particular steps at the front of the house are actually outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. But clearly we've got a little, construction that wasn't shown on the plan. Now, none of the work is in the 50-foot buffer zone. So my report is basically saying that all of the stairs and narrow landing areas are located within upland area, directly adjacent to the house, and within the approved limit of work line approved by the Conservation Commission. Also at the corner of the house, if I'm looking in at the house from the road, at the far left corner above the wetland, at the back of the house is a air conditioning compressor, which I took photographs of, that was not shown on the approved site plan. That is also within the 100-foot buffer zone and outside of the 50-foot buffer. So I'm seeing that the front steps were added to the site plan. I think Mr. Kaplan's view is that the commission, under the building code, is that it needs to have steps at the front of the house and outside any doorway or at the back of the property where the other sliding glass doors. You have to have your steps to come in and out of the house. But I looked at the plan, they're not on the plan. I can understand why the commission's saying, well, that technically wasn't on the plan. The air compressor unit is a separate little item because that was not discussed with the Conservation Commission, but has been built within the 100-foot buffer zone. I don't think it has any impact on the wetlands. None of the work is within 50-foot buffer zone. None of the proposed alterations, all of it directly adjacent to the existing house within the sort of flat plateau upland area where the construction took place, going to have any impact on the isolated wetland, which is located down a very steep slope, actually, in the back of the house. So basically, I think you've got some work, minor alteration work that has occurred within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone that the commission needs to approve. And I was the agent in the town for 22 years in Massachusetts. I've been doing this work since the 70s. This is, I think something that the conservation agent and the commission could, I think work out with Mr. Kaplan. I think basically in the rule of thumb is once you get an order of conditions, if you do any work or add it in, it should be talked over with the Conservation Commission agent, and those items should be added to the site plan. Right now, if you look at the approved site plan, I don't have the access ways or the steps added in or the air compressor. And that's something I'm assuming the commission's probably going to want for a final certificate of compliance, to have those items added.
Mr.
Can I ask
Chair,
you a question, Mr. Chair?
Virtually no impact to the wetlands, really no impact to the buffer zone because everything is within the approved limit of work line by the Wellesley Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
You have something you want to say? Mike?
yes, if I can share the screen or I can just read it out. On November 18th, the, there it is. Nope. No, it's not going to come up. On November 18th, the commission asked out this, and Mr. Kaplan said that that there is an existing cabin which was moved to another part of the property and will come back before the commission for an after the fact filing. And there was also a note that the silt fence was not functioning. It had not been knocked down and is in fact not functioning today.
Okay, well, as regard the cabin or the shed, that's going to be moved outside of the 100 buffer zone. If you that's just on the screen, you see a location with an S rectangle. No, this is the back of the house. Can someone bring up the drawing that was just on the screen, please? There was just a drawing on the screen. If someone has that, please.
That was yours.
Be the site plan.
Yeah, I didn't put it up there. Someone put it
No,
up.
Hillary did.
Hillary, could you please put that up?
That's it.
Okay, so where you see where the X is, that is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. It's also been approved by the building commission in that exact location. And when we get the go-ahead, if we get a go-ahead for the house, as soon as we're able to get up there, we will have that moved to the location outside of the buffer zone where it's shown on the plan. As regard to silt fence, I've already asked that it be remediated. Apparently, people are very, very busy and they haven't been able to take care of it yet.
So the reality is that there was some work within the 100 that wasn't on the plan. Correct?
Excuse me?
A question as well, Leon. I'm wondering when the air conditioner compressor went in, because in November it wasn't there.
It was there at that time.
When was it put in, Mr. Kaplan?
I have no idea. Within the last 8 months.
Was there anything else put onto the property that we're unaware of?
Not that I know of.
So there's a 2-foot by 50-foot,
It's 2 by 20.
2 by 20?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a little more than 2 feet. I think it's 30 inches, frankly.
All right.
It's 20, and it's only in front of the, there's a doorway in the master bedroom, and there's a double doorway in the central room of the house. And that's the only part it is. It's the house itself is 3 feet above the ground level. So it's necessary that there be steps and a landing for all of the doorways.
So,
So-
Mr. Chair,
so
can
ha-
I,
Oh, go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
so there's a pipe, PVC pipe coming out, and next to the sliding doors, there's protrusions. What's going to happen with those?
You want to go up, if someone can pull up the picture. Are you looking at the back of the house?
Yes,
If Hillary, could you pull up that?
she can't, but if she unscares.
That's required by that is required by the plumbing code. And those pipes vent out the furnace and they vent out the, I don't know, they're both for the furnace, I believe.
What is the furnace served by? Is it oil? Is it gas?
It's oil.
So you have an intake and an exhaust.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what that is. That's, yeah, there's an intake and an exhaust. That is correct. That's the PVC pipe, yes.
And what are these protuberance, these metal protuberances?
Well,
Where do
no,
you see that?
that type of pipe is that looks like that's associated with natural gas. Is the property served by
Right.
natural gas, by propane?
No, it's
or
not
propane?
natural gas. It's oil. It's an oil. It's oil.
So there's an oil tank in the house,
There's an oil tank, yes.
and there's no gas serving the property.
No gas serving the property.
What are these metal things?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Just let me think, please. I'm wrong. There is natural gas serving the property. I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not oil. It's propane. I apologize. It's propane. It's a propane tank, and propane for the stove and propane for the dryer.
And
Oh.
where is that tank? Is it buried on the front of the
The
house?
tank
or-
is buried on the property. It's to the east of the house.
All right.
It's outside of our jurisdiction. Is that accurate?
It may be within your jurisdiction. It's buried, and it's within the 100-foot buffer zone.
It's within the 100-foot buffer zone.
I believe it is.
Okay.
So are we looking at sort of an amended plan here at this point with all of these items?
I would be happy to do whatever it takes to get this so we can occupy the house. So if we're talking about an amended plan, I don't care. I'm not worried about, my feeling as far as the steps are concerned, that they should have been assumed because of the elevation of the house, and their normally steps would be assumed for a house. But I don't care what I'm trying to do. As far as the shed is concerned, it's going to be taken out of your jurisdiction. So that's not even going to be considered. It'll be outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. I'm having it surveyed to make sure that's certain. So as far as anything else, as far as an amended plan, you tell me what it takes so that I can get this house approved.
Can I ask one more question, Leon?
Yes, you may, Mike.
So also in the order of conditions was for 3 years, you were going to take care of the Japanese knotweed by hand
Absolutely.
removal,
Yes, sir.
but it's not been done.
Well, I have not been able to, first of all, the house wasn't finished until or quasi-finished until the fall. There's no way to access the knotweed until am able to go up and down that hill. But I have 3 years to do it, and I intend to do it completely.
No, you're supposed to do it for 3 years, not in 3 years.
All right. Well, using that all Japanese knotweed is not already mediated.
Hillary,
You're breaking up, Mr. Kaplan, so we're having a little trouble understanding everything you're saying.
Leon, can I ask a question to
Yes,
Hillary?
John, please do.
Hillary, I have a question about this.
Go ahead.
As I remember, this was a very contested situation when it came before us. And
Correct.
we saw the plans and we eventually okayed the plans, and we did not see the steps on the back of the house. I don't care about the front of the house, the back of the house
Correct.
And the air conditioning.
and the air conditioning, but it's the steps on the back of the house. I understand if there's doors in the back of the house, they need steps. That's building code. But my question is, did we know when we approved this that there was going to be doors in the back of the house? In which case it's on us that we approve something without taking into consideration the steps. Or did we approve it without knowing there were going to be doors in the back of the house? And hence we've got now a situation where we're going to have to either have something else done with the house, or else we're okaying something we did not approve of when we originally approved of the plan. And this is not a little thing, because this was a highly contested case. So is it on us, or is this a problem?
Well, here's the thing. It's never on the commission, because the commission can't assume what one is going to build. And it's assumed that the applicant will come back to us for any deviation in the plan. So you couldn't say, oh, this is Mr. Kaplan's house. He's going to want a 2-foot deck and 3 stairs to get down. Or might he want a 5-foot deck and 2 stairs? I mean, it's not up for us to assume something. It has to be shown to us in order to be approved. And sometimes folks get the dwelling approved and then they come back to us with any modifications to the plan, like the order of condition specs out. So any deviation from the plan would bring you back before the commission for approval. So I think it's on the applicant to come forth with what they want to do and bring it back to the commission, because it's not on the approved plan.
Okay, so it's before the commission today. Mr. Shea has testified as an expert witness that there's no adverse impact to the wetland. That's the obligation of the person making the application, which is myself and my wife. There is no adverse impact. Is there anyone on the commission who has a contrary opinion regarding an adverse impact?
It's not for, it's for the commission to determine that, not you or your consultant.
Oh, yes, it is. Because eventually, if it goes to court, somebody has got to say, oh, yes, there is an adverse impact. What I'm saying is I have an expert witness saying there is no adverse impact. Does anyone on the commission disagree with Mr. Shea's testimony?
I wouldn't say that it's a matter of disagreeing. It's a matter of understanding the situation before us. And
Hillary, Hillary, you're not on the commission.
no, I'm not.
You're
But
paid.
Mr.
Hillary,
Kaplan.
let me finish.
Mr. Kaplan, if you want to speak, please ask.
All right, I would like to speak. I'm asking the commissioners who are present if they have an opinion contrary to that of Mr. Shea, where he testified that there is no adverse impact from the little landing on the back of the house and the air conditioning unit. If anyone on the commission has a contrary opinion, let me hear from them now. I'd like to hear what they think.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mike.
without a detailed plan showing all of the total square footage of the house, all of the improvements within the 100-foot buffer zone, it's impossible for us to give approval for what's been done.
Right.
This is
All right.
Mr. Kaplan. And yes, you do have the testimony of Mr. Shea. He went to the location, he took pictures, he made measurements, okay? So you have all the information in front of you. What information additional do you need other than the pictures showing what happened to the site?
We
Mr.
need to
Shane's
see-
testimony does not show us where this underground storage tank is, does it?
Okay, you want to know where the propane tank is that right?
But it doesn't
Is it-
document that, correct?
Yeah, we don't need to know it. We
Correct.
need to
It
see
does not
concrete
document that.
plan.
All right. So you want me to have this located on picture and come back to you before again? All I can see and what I've heard from this commission is testimony from doing the whole thing.
I think we're probably lucky we didn't
I
hear
can
that.
come back with a drawing. I can come back with a drawing with all the things on, with the propane tank on it, and the air compressor on it. What happens then, once I do that?
Kaplan, can you try shutting off your video because you're breaking in and out and we're having a very difficult time hearing you. And sometimes if you shut off the video, we can hear the sound more clear.
Are you telling me you can't hear?
Yeah, no, you're breaking up.
All right, I'll try to take off the video.
Thank you.
Hold on, excuse me. Oh, sorry. I don't know how to do this.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'll try to be clearer. With a drawing showing the landing, first of all, the two landings in the side, the front, outside the 100-foot buffer zone. If anybody has an adverse opinion regarding that, let's hear about it now. No,
We need to
that is
see,
not I showed, pardon me,
we need to see
look at
a
the
correct
drawing.
site plan.
Yes. Look at on the
Then we'll
site
determine.
plan, not within the 100-foot zone. So all we're talking about now is we're talking at the landing in the back of the house, and we're talking about the air conditioning compressor, and we're talking about the propane tank, which has been buried. Am I clear? Is that what you're looking for?
Barbara, you have something?
Yes, I would say that needs to be on the plan, that
Oh,
the plan
okay,
that we
and then-
approve has to reflect what's on the ground.
Okay, and when I
And
come
that's what
back
gets
with that-
filed with the deed, and that goes with the house. And we also
Okay,
need
I'll
to
be
see
happy.
this.
I will be
the
happy to do
square foot-
that.
I'm not finished.
Kaplan.
I'm not finished. I would
Go
also
ahead.
like to see the total square foot of disturbance to the property on the plan as well. We did not see this letter, so I don't know. And this was a project that was approved months and months ago. So I no longer have the paperwork because we had a supervisor for this project. So I would like to see a new plan with all of those elements that you just described and the total square footage of disturbance in the buffer
Excuse
zone
me, just
on the
because
plan.
you don't, this is Mr. Kaplan. Are you suggesting because you don't have the letter in front of you that I have to do the additional work on this application?
No, we're saying that you've executed some activities that weren't on the original plan. We need to see a copy of the plan with what is as built.
Okay,
And then we'll
and
determine.
since we have, And if I have an opinion by Mr. Shea that there's no adverse impact to the wetland, what can I expect from this commission?
That
We
we
could
will evaluate that when we see the new plan.
You know, here's the problem. If you turn it down, then I have to go to court.
Well, you're assuming things that might
Yes.
not happen. Let's just go with the process and just see the new plan. That's what
All
we
right,
want
I will
to see
get you,
what's
I will
built.
get you, I will get you a new plan post haste. And I would ask of the commission that they deal reasonably with this application and that I'm not forced to go to court. So I will get you the plan in the way that you've suggested. I'll get it to you as soon as possible. How should this be submitted?
Hillary, should this go to you?
How should it be delivered? Yes, it can be dropped off outside the office. It can be emailed. It can be mailed.
All right, do you want a whole new plan or do you just want a drawing?
We want a certified plan, the same that you submitted with your original notice of intent. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we had requested back in November when you were before us. And the same thing that we requested when we had a phone call with Maria Broadbent, the town administrator. So we're not asking for anything different than we've asked for previously. And I appreciate Paul Shea and Paul Shea's work, and I do value that as well, but we need to see the work on the approved plan.
Okay. So I've heard from no one that they think that things on the plan are an adverse impact. What you are saying though, however, is that you want to see an amended plan. Is that correct?
Leon,
Yes, John. Go ahead.
I said one way or the other whether I feel this is an adverse impact. I do not like the fact that we're trying to evaluate additions to the proposal that were not on the plan that we approved. And then we're told that if we don't there's implication that if we don't approve this, we will go to court. I find that very disturbing on the part of the person who has added
This is Mr. Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
proposal
You
that
know,
we
this
have
is
not
Mr. Kaplan
seen.
again.
Kaplan, please be quiet. Let Mr. Kumbler speak.
I will. I apologize. Go ahead.
We did not see the back steps on the proposal that we approved. You have added those, and now you're telling us that we have to approve it or you'll take us to court. I find that
Well,
disturbing.
you are going to go to court. No. I'm not telling you have to approve it. You can do whatever you want to do. You have that discretion, obviously. But I'm going to go to court in order to occupy my house. I've been told by the building.
Mr. Kaplan, we can't,
Unless I have,
Mr. Kaplan, we can't hear you. You're breaking
all right,
up.
I'll speak. I will try to speak more clearly. I've been told by the building commissioner that without that back landing, he cannot approve the house for occupancy. Okay. If you don't approve the house for occupancy, if you don't approve the plans of the house, then I have no alternative. Okay.
I'm
and
sorry,
I'm-
you have an alternative to close off the back of the house the way it was presented to us when you first.
You know what? You know what? Bullshit. And you can keep that on the record too. You know, the arrogance of this commission, which I've heard not only in my case, but with everyone else's before you, is extraordinary. You're a voluntary board and your basic direction is to uphold the ecological standards of those areas in which you have jurisdiction, but you go far further than that. And your assumptions are far greater than that. So I will give you an amended plan. You can do with it what you wish. I hope you approve it. If you don't, we'll deal with it.
Okay,
Do we have
So
to
do we
move to
need to-
continue this?
it's not a hearing,
It's
so.
not a hearing, but
So
it
we
may
don't-
have to come back as a hearing, don't you think? Or
I think so.
Who is
because-
this, Hillary?
what is the process, Hillary?
Well, I think once we see the additions on the site plan, we can then evaluate the next step. We can bring it back before the commission and see if the commission is open to accepting the changes as field changes, or if the commission feels that the work is so warranted, we can ask for an amendment to the order. Those are the two options.
Okay, sounds good.
Plan, then we'll take it from there.
The first step is to receive the revised plan. Do we have a time frame for which that will be submitted to us?
Well, what do you suggest? I will get it to you as soon as I possibly can.
Okay, very well then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea.
Thank you for your time.
Next up, we'll have Mike Shannon.
Hey, Mr. Shannon.
Hello. This is my first Zoom call, so if I screw things up, bear with me. Looks like you all have some experience.
So far, you're doing well.
Okay, so Mr. Shannon has cut trees within the 100-foot buffer zone. I think we're all somewhat familiar with this case.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Shannon, if you want to go ahead and explain your situation to the commission. It's 135 Main Street, or no,
No, 55.
45 and 55.
45 and 55. Got it. Sorry.
So I never cut any trees,
Shrubs?
shrubs, privet hedge, yes, but no trees. So I don't know, I know some of you came and did a site visit. I don't know if all of you did. If you didn't, I'll explain the layout for you. So did everybody see it?
We drove by. We saw the privet head cut by the fence, yes.
Okay, all right. So you know it's a area that's not in its natural vegetative state. And the privet hedge is not native species. As a matter of fact, the border privet is a prohibited plant under Massachusetts, the prohibited plant list. So the privet hedge was about 15 feet tall. It comes within about 6 feet of my house, especially, and that's also where the main bedroom is located. And so in the wintertime or severe storms, the privet hedge bangs against the house, disturbs my sleep, our sleep, and it also damages the house. So back in May of last year, I contacted Justin Post, who was a building inspector at the time. And I asked him who the fence viewer was for Wellesley. So Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 49 deals with the fence viewer. And it's a position that's been around since it originated in 1647. That's how far back it goes. And it's still enforced today. And the fence viewer in Chapter 49, Section 2 states fences 4 feet high in good repair, constructed of rails, timber, boards, iron or stone, and brooks, rivers, ponds, creeks, ditches, and hedges, or other things which the fence viewers consider equivalent thereof, shall be deemed legal and sufficient fences. So when I contacted Mr. Post, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. He came out and looked at the fence, and he said the hedge is a fence. The height is, damaging my house. It's got to be cut down, not cut down, but, lowered.
Mhm.
So then he suggested, he said, go ahead and hire a land surveyor, which I had done previously years ago, and the stakes had mysteriously disappeared. So I hired Don Poole, who's going to be on later, I guess. And he came out and surveyed the boundary and staked the boundary. I then called Mr. Post up again, And I told him, okay, everything's been done and that sort of thing. He was going to get a hold of my neighbor and tell my neighbor that he's got to trim the hedge down. And within chapter 49, if one party doesn't trim the hedge, the other party can. And that's what I did. I tried to work with the town, Mr. Post, the building inspector at the time. I tried to follow the law. I tried to do everything right. The privet hedge, I wasn't doing vista pruning. The last thing I want to do is see the debris that sits in my neighbor's yard. I mean, right along where that privet hedge is. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see there's construction debris, there's boats with motors, there's piles of tires covered under tarps. It lines all the way down to the marsh. And Commissioner Fisher, who was here today, he saw some of that. There's boats sitting within 5 feet of the marsh on the coastal bank with junk tossed underneath it. So, like I said, it's not a natural vegetated state. I know also, well, let me back up a second.
Mr. Shannon, can I ask?
Go ahead.
You said that you were working with the town. Did you walk next door and talk to your neighbor?
No, I have to work with him through an attorney. That was what I was letting Mr. Post do. It's been very difficult to work with my neighbor, unfortunately. I wish it was different. I don't come to Wellfleet to have arguments with my neighbor. I come to Wellfleet to enjoy the marsh, relax, recreate, and that type of thing. And I do know from personal discussions that the neighbor on the other side of my neighbor has had similar types of problem, but we're not here to discuss him.
Right. Hillary? Are you there, Hillary?
Yes, I'm here.
I don't, first of all, the subject hedge that was cut wasn't even on Mr. Shannon's property. And I'm not sure exactly what jurisdictional opinion or what do we do with this? I mean, it's not the person that owns the hedge. It's Mr. Shannon, and it's not clear to me why he's here. What are we trying to accomplish here?
I think we just needed Mr. Shannon to describe to the commission what had transpired. The neighbor has asked a number of times if the commission had spoke to Mr. Shannon, because Mr. Shannon was the individual who undertook the tree cutting, be it on his property or not. So he was the one that hired the tree company to trim the hedge or remove the hedge. I'm not clear at this point, but that had solicited for the work to be done.
Do any of the members of the committee or
Leon,
commission have anything to say? John?
this is a privet hedge. It's not a privileged
Right.
species of plants. I think that the issue of between neighbors is an issue between neighbors. It's not an issue for this commission. And I don't think we need to get involved. If he had cut species on a plant species that was on the bank that was, would lead to coastal erosion, that would be our concern. This is not. This is a cutting of.
I think I concur. Barbara, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I think privet hedges are traditionally trimmed and cut down periodically as a landscape feature. I don't know that there's been a loss of wildlife habitat. There certainly hasn't been any detriment to the resource in terms of they weren't cut down. So
Right.
I don't know that this is in our jurisdiction at all.
Benjamin, do you have anything to say on this?
Well, All right, so the privet is still alive then? It was just cut down?
It was
Cut
trimmed,
down.
yes, yeah, cut down.
Okay, then yeah, I would kind of echo what you said, Barbara.
Yeah. And Michael, do you have any thoughts?
Well, only that the new fence, which wasn't on the original plan, does go down to quite close to the water. And I think that should have gotten approval.
Right.
And it wasn't. I would also hope that we could have a complaint against the neighbor, because there is a lot of debris, quite harmful debris, on the neighbor's property down to the water. So I would like to see the applicant apply to put up the fence, and also to have the neighbor come in and explain the debris that's really close to the water. At the risk of trying to do this, let me just show, if I can. So this front picture shows the current fence that you can see goes right down to the water, and then the neighbor's boats are right behind it. And as I say, that was not on the original plan, although I think I would probably approve it. What was on the original plan was this, with the current features. This is the privet hedge, and that was the picket fence that was there.
Mhm.
So behind the fence, we were seeing some of the storage and things that.
Yes, there's clearly a lot of debris, rusting trailers, rotting tires, engines, and so on. So that I would definitely want to have the neighbor come in and explain how they're going to clean that up.
Hillary?
Yes, I can weigh in on this. When the cutting first occurred, we wrote to Mr. Shannon, and this feels like it was forever ago. And we then heard back from Mr. Shannon's attorney inquiring about these items on the neighboring property. So we shared that letter with the abutter, and we got back a long detailed letter about what all these items are and how they are in use and what they are used for. And at that point, we did investigate all of those items. And I fear that if we start looking at items in all these yards that abut the wetland, we're going down a slippery slope here. I do not want to be the police. We went down this road with another neighbor in this neighborhood, and what the commission considers someone's, I don't want to use the word junk, but stuff, accumulations, turned out to be someone's like prized possessions. And so are they detrimental to the wetland, and what are they harming is I think what we need to stay focused on. I'd prefer not to be the one getting called to look at neighbors' collections of stuff if it's truly not detrimental, because I remember when we did it the last time, and it was awfully uncomfortable because none of it was really too detrimental. So I do have an accounting of all the materials on the neighbor's property and what the neighbor uses them for. And I also don't want to see us insert ourselves in a neighbor to neighbor dispute, because I don't think that's our purpose. So I think we've heard about the shrub or hedge trimming. The commission can make a determination to close that case, and then we can move on.
Leon, I move that we close this case.
Yeah, I agree. And is there a second?
Second, Michael.
All right. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Leon, yes. So no further action is warranted. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Have a good day.
We need to go to meeting.
We do have John Reel. Is he still on the line or did we lose him to talk about the warrant articles?
I am here.
He's here.
And I also have like 5 or 6 things for business, so I think we may have to reconvene for a few minutes after the hearings.
Yeah, I have something I want to talk about too. So why don't we hear Mr. Reel and then go on to our hearings.
Unless this is going to be longer than the time.
Yeah.
John Reel, I know you've waited this whole time and I'm wondering if we can maybe push you further out only because we have to start the scheduled hearings at 5 o'clock. While I really thought we could get to you tonight to hear the warrant articles, I feel like we do want to have some time to talk about those and not just hear from you and move on. So I don't know if you're agreeable to come back to our next meeting or you would like to rejoin the business meeting when we're through the hearings. 2 of our hearings have been continued. So it might be shorter than previously anticipated.
I think probably it's best I come back at your next meeting, which is what, 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, May 19th.
We'll try to put you right up front.
Okay. I guess the one question I could ask, you were sent, is there more information I could have sent to you in order to help you understand and ask questions about the 2 proposed, warrant items? They're on the warrant and they've been approved by the Board of Selectmen. So that doesn't, you don't have to answer that now, but I'd appreciate it if you would let me know if there's any further information I could have supplied. And now I have the time to do it.
Okay. I would like someone to comment on using that dredge spoils on Duck Creek marshes. Was there a biological study? I need to see the science behind why you're proposing that. So that's what I would like. Just.
Okay, that was work that was done by Dr. Mittermeier at.
Yeah, I know, but I want to see more about why that's an appropriate thing to do. I know what's in it. I know she analyzed it, but I need to see why that's going to be ecologically, just giving you something, because I couldn't just approve this now without more information.
I'm trying to figure out what the information is that isn't in her report, Barbara.
Well, maybe we can talk offline about
Yeah,
this.
I will be glad to do that. That's a good
Okay.
idea. I'll give
All
you a
right.
call.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I'd like to hear a motion to adjourn the business meeting.
So moved, Michael.
Second, John Cumberland.
All right, Barbara,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. Okay. We are now adjourned from the business meeting. I will read this to preface the hearings. Pursuant to the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, 18 through 25, as amended by Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2009, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaws of July 1986, and its regulations of January 2000, the Wellfleet Conservation Commission will hold public hearings on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 at 5 p.m. with the business meeting starting at 4 p.m. via remote meeting. Pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely. So we are now in session. The commissioners present are Barbara Bresnacel, Benjamin Fairbank, John Cumberland, Mike Fisher, and Leon Shreves. So our first hearing is Ingram. Is there anyone to speak for Ingram at 15 Pine Point Road.
Yes, can I be, am I being heard? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, you are, Mr. Peabody.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Peabody. I work with Safe Harbor. I'm the environmental representative of record for this project. The order of conditions, as it was issued by the commission, is set to expire on June 27th. And as you know, any extension needs to be approved 30 days prior. So I was quite concerned that we, apply some professional attention to this. There've been no changes in the project, but these are COVID-related delays, and both in getting materials, getting specialized workmen, just getting workmen, and just a lot of the delays that I don't need to go into. We've all been living with them. So at this time, I'd like to respectfully request of the commission that we have a 2-year extension if the commission is amenable. I'm thinking a couple other projects, maybe we should ask for 3 years. I can't really see the future. But whatever the commission determines, I'm in favor of.
It's been 3 years since we've seen this. Can you describe this project for us and what the extent of it?
The project is occurring between all within the 100-foot buffer zone. And it's mainly landscaping that would be noticeable. There's a couple of decks. There's mainly interior renovations to a home. And things are moving slowly.
And you're asking for a 2-year extension? Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I can't really see the future, but based on conversations with the property owner, who's very concerned, but things are just moving slowly, and I'm not in the position to change the rate of pace on any project, but we've been maintaining the erosion control, and there's also every phase of the project has been reviewed and approved by the commission, and we don't have any changes that I'm aware of outside of that. So nothing, everything's the same, but we just need more time.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to needing more time, and this is COVID. We've been reluctant as a committee to give extensions more than a year for the simple reason that things do change. And we don't want to be in a situation where it turns out that the change may make the original proposal more problematic in the future. So I would feel more comfortable if I certainly want to give the extension, but I would feel more comfortable if the extension were just for 1 year, unless there's reason that 1 year is just not at all feasible.
Yes, Mr. Chair, may I address the question?
Yes, you may.
This is Gordon Peabody speaking on behalf of the applicant. My understanding, and I certainly don't get everything right. The only thing I'm an expert at is how I like my coffee, and I don't even get that right. But my understanding is that it's legally incumbent on the applicant to notify the commission of any changes. And us being the representatives of record, that would be something that we would want to make sure happened. I'm no stranger to changes on a job. I don't like them. I don't like them happening in the dark of night. And I agree that the commission should be notified of any changes. But it sounds like maybe the previous speaker may have had some poor experiences with previous applicants, and whatever the commission feels is appropriate. I
think Commissioner Kumbler was talking about the changes in laws and bylaws.
And also in the environment itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Sea level rise, greater erosion, issues like that makes us reluctant to extend too far out into the future.
Yeah. In this particular case, the applicant's across the road from the marsh, so I'd be concerned if we had sea level rise, but that certainly is germane in many cases, I understand.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Is there any other discussion, first of all? Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, do I hear a motion? John, you want to make a motion?
Well, I would certainly support the extension for 1 year. I'm again, if Mr. Peabody has a reason that just can't be done in a year, then I would be glad to hear it. But if the year extension is reasonable, I would prefer just that we stick to the precedent we established several years ago of
Yes.
doing year-to-year extensions.
Okay, Mr. Peabody, do you think that he can get done in a year?
If I could address the previous speaker through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I was unaware that the commission had an informal set of guidelines, and I apologize for not having a better level of understanding. It's a tricky time, and certainly, I would hope that we could come before you for a certificate of compliance in that time. Let's see what happens. So I would be amenable to going with the motion.
Okay, John, would you
So
like to
I
move?
make a motion that we grant an extension from 1 year from when the term
When they first expires?
of the last proposal, yes.
All right, do I hear a second from the commission?
Barbara,
Second.
yes.
Okay, Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes,
and Leon, yes. Thank you, Mr. Peabody, for
Okay.
coming to us with this.
Thank you so much for your time and energy during this difficult time. I appreciate everyone's effort. Thank you very much, sir.
Have a good evening.
and Chris, which form do we use for this, if any?
Extension form, it's, whoops, I have it right here.
Is it an 8B? No.
I took them out. Here it is.
Oh, here it is. It's a 7, Form 7, extension permit for orders of conditions. Is that it?
Yes, I think that's right. Yes, that's correct.
Form 7.
Thank you.
Definitely correct.
All right. So next. Second. There's paper around on my desk here. Okay, next we're going to Doak is of 118 Baker Road. Is there anybody to speak to that?
Mr. Chairman, that's me, Don Poole from Outermost Land Survey.
Okay,
Okay, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me tonight. Y'all know, maybe aware, about 3.5 years ago, we bought the assets of Slade Associates, and with that, we picked up a lot of projects that were in various phases. This is one that I was not involved with, but the client is planning, I believe, some additional work in removing some invasive species and planting some more, and needed a topographic plan for the property. In doing that, they discovered that they had not received a certificate of compliance for the previous work. So we have submitted an application for a certificate of compliance. I found that the work is in compliance with the plans. The only change, which was not visible to me because it was underground, was the installation of the dry well for the showers as indicated in our letter of a request. I'm not sure that I don't do this very often, so I'm not sure exactly what you need from me. I was under the impression that from the bylaws or from the regulations that you just needed a letter outlining any changes, which I believe we submitted. So we would ask for a certificate of compliance on this project, please.
normally we have a supervisor for a project, but this may have been lost in history. Hillary, did Doug go by and look at this?
Yeah, this is an older one, and we had been out there previously, and we have been in close contact with Mrs. Doak about obtaining the certificate of compliance. So yes, we were out there. Feels like it was well before I had knee surgery, so a while back, and it is in compliance with the order on file.
Okay.
So we
All
can
right.
go ahead and issue this one.
So
Does
I
any-
move that we issue a certificate of compliance for 118 Baker Road.
Does the commissioner, anybody on the commission second that?
Barbara,
All right, Barbara, how do you vote?
yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. Okay.
8B,
8B,
8B.
Thank you very much for your brief time tonight. I hope you have a good meeting.
thank you, Mr. Poole. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the town of Wellesley. And this is about repaving the Lieutenant Island Road. Is there anyone to speak to that?
Yes, we have Jay Norton here from the Department of Public Works and Kevin McHugh, our consultant on the project.
Ah, great.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
How you
Norton.
doing? Jay Norton here from the DPW representing the town.
Hi, Jay.
How you
Everyone,
doing
I'm
tonight?
Kevin McHugh with Conoco Engineers and Scientists.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh.
So Kevin,
Uh,
I'll just start off a brief introduction to this, just to recap, and then I'll pass it off to you for a more thorough review of the project.
Sounds good.
Thank you for your time tonight. It's been probably over a year since we first discussed this project. We needed to continue it for a number of reasons. One of which was we were seeking funding at town meeting to continue the project, so that was all approved. Another thing was obviously COVID put some brakes on the project. And lastly, probably the major component of this that we're struggling with is the bylaw, the general bylaw component that Kevin will get more into. But that was brought up at one of the first public hearings by an audience member about the Town of Wellesley General Bylaw, Article 7, Section 30, which basically states that if you touch a road in town, any runoff from that road needs to be infiltrated on site. So there can't be any discharges. Currently, the Lieutenant Island Road has about 7 discharges from existing stormwater facilities. This project, the scope of the project is to resurface and improve the road, as well as upgrade about 14 stormwater facilities. So we've been working with Kevin McHugh from Conoco to try and analyze this and come up with a game plan to move forward. And we'd like to just open up a discussion with the commission today with the hopes to try and understand a path to move forward. Because the way the bylaw is written is very restrictive to what we can do, and it's going to extremely increase the price of the project. And obviously the disturbance within the road if we have to infiltrate all of the stormwater. So with that, I'll pass it off to Kevin to just provide a more of an overview of the project, because it's been so long. So we want to make sure that the commissioners, I know there's some new people on the board, are familiar with the project, and then we can go from there.
Thanks, Jay. Again, this is Kevin McHugh with Conoco, and thank you, everyone. So as Jay mentioned, this project, I think we were first heard by the commission back in October 2019. So it's been quite a while since we first discussed this project. But just as a brief overview, since it has been such a long time, Lieutenant Island Road, the town is looking to resurface. It's about 4,100 linear feet extending from Route 6 down to Catboat. The road's it varies from 24 to 26 foot wide paved surface. So as Jay mentioned, the intention is just to resurface the road with new pavement, keep the paved width the same, but to also install new drainage, basically new catch basins. The catch basins that are out there now are older, and they're also shallow catch basins. So the proposal is to include deep sump catch basins so that you could collect sediment, and also the catch basins will be hooded to provide some treatment for the collected stormwater. So it's a pretty typical standard roadway repaving project. It's not a reconstruction, it's a repaving project. Where, as Jeff mentioned, as Jay mentioned, where we ran into our problem as we've been going forward is with the stormwater bylaw. And I wasn't in attendance during the October 2019 hearing, but my understanding was the bylaw was brought up then. And again, it is, as Jay mentioned, it's Article 7, Section 30. And I don't know, am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, thank you. So let me know if this.
So I'm presuming that of this 4,100 square or linear feet, that a good deal of this is within the jurisdiction of the commission?
It's within, I think almost all of it is within the buffer zone of the salt marsh.
Yeah. All right.
So where, if this works, can you all see that?
Yep.
I just
Can.
I just did this a few minutes ago. I figured this might help. So hopefully it looks okay.
Great.
So the general bylaw, I just took a cut out of the general bylaw. And the way it's worded is essentially it targets any regraded, constructed, or maintained project to divert. It's required to divert or direct the flow of runoff, which is defined as stormwater, into any wetland. So it's protects. It's not, you're not allowed to, according to the bylaw, to discharge anything from maintained project into a wetland. And then uncontaminated runoff should be directed in such a way as to recharge to the groundwater within the lot where it originates. So it's a very broad bylaw and it covers a lot of things. So essentially, if you're just looking at roadway resurfacing projects, this is going to have an impact on any resurfacing projects within the town, just looking at resurfacing projects. So for us, we're trying to understand what is the intent of the bylaw. So if the overall intent of the bylaw is to comply with the Massachusetts stormwater standards, I think it's important to understand that there are some differences. The recharge requirement, as stated here in the bylaw, it's consistent with the Mass Stormwater Standards, but the bylaw doesn't differentiate between development and redevelopment projects. Now, as a resurfacing project, this would be, according to stormwater management standards, the resurfacing project would be considered a redevelopment project. And then also, the second bullet, the state standards also detail recharge requirements and calculation methods, while the bylaw doesn't do that, so it leaves things wide open. So from my standpoint as an engineer, if we are going to have to recharge, I need some guidance on what we'd be looking at. I'll touch on this a little bit, but what storm event would we need to design for to recharge? Would we be talking a 10-year storm, a 100-year storm? That leaves a lot of questions out there. The Massachusetts standard, again, for a redevelopment project, if you look strictly at the Massachusetts stormwater standards, and if that's what the overall objective of this bylaw is, it's the redevelopment projects are required to meet the stormwater standards to the maximum extent practicable, standards 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and meet the other standards as practicable. So as a redevelopment project, the Massachusetts stormwater standards don't require that you comply with all of the standards that they have. And I think where that really becomes more important is when you're looking at recharging. So the Massachusetts stormwater standards, when they discuss recharge, it refers back to the Mass Highway standards. And in the Mass Highway standards, it basically targets projects where you're going to be increasing the impervious surface. So for Lieutenant Island Road, we're not looking at doing that. The impervious surface would remain the same. In accordance with the Mass Highway standards, if the impervious area is not increased, then a recharge BMP is not necessary. So according to the Mass Highway standards, and going also back to the Mass Stormwater standards, if you're not increasing the impervious surface, you don't need to necessarily to recharge. Now, where we're running into a problem is if you take a strict reading of that bylaw. So if recharge is going to be required, no matter what, the questions again that we have as a designer is, what design storm should we be sizing for? It's going to be an extreme difference in volume if we are designing for a 10-year storm, obviously, versus a 100-year storm event. Would the entire road surface be considered? Do you need to consider run-on? you know, what are the limits of where we'll be looking at for when we're calculating our area and that rain that's going to be collected and would need to be recharged. And then looking at other areas in town where you have wetlands, you have high groundwater, how can you recharge in those areas? If you have high groundwater, it's going to be, you know, almost impossible to recharge. And the bylaw doesn't give you an out or an exemption for something like that. Other considerations with regards to the bylaw too is, you know, the intent is to, it excludes discharges into a resource area. It's what's outfalls you're not allowed to discharge into a wetland. So is it talking specifically in the resource area, or is it into a buffer zone? It doesn't really define where it's excluding a discharge. And then what happens if a stormwater infiltration system, if the size of that is exceeded? Obviously, if we're designing, say, for a 10-year storm and we have a major storm event, the infiltration system is not going to be able to take that capacity. And where can it go? Can we put an outfall? Could that outfall in overflow go to a wetlands? It just leaves a lot of unanswered questions. And from a designer, it makes it very difficult to be able to design this system to get it to work correctly. I mean, from my experience, I work for another number of different communities in Massachusetts. I've never really come across a bylaw that's like this. It's typically, especially for a municipal resurfacing, you know, roadway maintenance project, it's things like this. I've never seen something like this, because this has a major implication on not only permitting the project, but also in what the overall cost of the project will be. Because you're looking at going from just repaving a roadway to essentially reconstructing with full new drainage systems on any roads that you're going to need to do maintenance on. So, you know, we're obviously not looking to get an approval on a notice of intent tonight, but where we just like to open the discussions and the dialogue on how we should address this. So any questions?
The bylaw that you're citing, is that part of the, what section, is that part of our bylaw?
Yeah, that is the general.
No, it's the general bylaw of the town.
Yeah.
Right. So the only thing we can speak to is the impact that either going or doing this work that you're talking about or not, what's the effect on the environment within our jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't have much of an idea. Barbara, do you have any thoughts on it?
This is way beyond my expertise. I just want to mention that Gull Pond Road was repaved very recently from Route 6 to Chris Drive. And there was it never came before us. And the water is being completely diverted into the wetland on the north side of Gull Pond Road. And we never saw any mitigation, any drainage, anything being considered. And I'm wondering why this project is getting this kind of a treatment and that repaving project didn't even come before us.
That's a very good point. But
this, all that drainage is coming off of Route 6, by the way. That's not coming from town roads.
It's not coming from Gull Pond Road?
That all of that drainage where you're talking about, Barbara, is coming from Route 6. I have videos too, if you want to see them.
You got the videos, eh?
All I know is that every time it rains, it's just flowing off into that wetland, and there's a big mess there, a big pool that never was there before the resurfacing. So
That was
anyway,
always there before.
Okay, John, do you have something to say about this particular issue?
I think this is a bit of a quandary for us, because on one hand, we don't want to stop the town from repaving the Lieutenant Island Road, and we certainly don't want to impose on the town a huge financial burden. On the other hand, history tends to indicate that when we look for what seems to be short-term solutions, like when they first set up municipal septic systems, they put interceptor lines to divert sewage, but they allowed for storm water to just run right into public waterways. And then that's turned out to be a problem down the road that has to, we're now in cities across the country trying to recreate that or just for that. So I think this is the time we should try to think about what we can do to protect that very fragile ecosystem, particularly the bay where we've got shellfish from the problems of road runoff, which is a problem. I mean, if they, there are all kinds of things that come off of, that contaminate road runoff and going into the wetland. So I'm sympathetic to the problem the town has. I don't think, though, we should rush ahead to say, let's just not go to the more extreme mitigation on this. But we should seriously think about what does it mean if we okay a 10-year storm situation versus a 100-year storm situation. What's that going to mean in 10 years where we have 100-year storms every 10 years? I just think it's difficult, and I think we should be very careful. That's all I'm trying to.
Is it
Hillary?
is it possible, Kevin, to design to the 10-year storm criteria, or that's not feasible?
It's obviously it's going to be on a project by project basis. For this
I'm
one,
just talking about the Lieutenant Island Road. I
Sure.
didn't believe that was feasible, but I could be wrong.
it's possible. It's again, it impacts costs. It raises different concerns, especially with this setting where you have houses that are below the level of the road. So we need to look at issues like mounding. What's going to happen when you start infiltrating larger volumes of water. And then again, what do you do when you exceed that 10-year storm? Can we have, would an outlet be allowed if you exceed that storm to be able to relieve that excess water? But in general, it's possible that it would work. I think and I don't want to speak for DPW or for others in the town, it just from my own experience, I think the biggest thing we need to look at here is, and I agree with the statements that, we need to be careful with what's coming off of the roadways. It's just taking a look at that bylaw in general itself. Because
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I just have one more
Yes,
question. How long do we expect this roadway to last?
Okay, it's what, 20, 30 years?
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say 20. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a reasonable assumption.
So it wouldn't need resurfacing or anything prior to?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Okay. Sorry, I just curious.
Sure.
Barbara?
Just to add to the complication, the town is really struggling coming up with a wastewater treatment plan that also has road runoff as part of the issue in contributing to nitrates and other things that we have to have a plan for. So this is part of a much bigger picture, and I don't quite know how it fits in or what has the DPW been talking to that town's committee that's working with the Horsley Witten Group about remediating and how this might fit into all that. It's just another complication I'm bringing up.
Yeah, there's way too many variables and engineering aspects of this that are beyond my kith and kin, as far as estimating what a 100-year storm is going to drop on that street, how fast it will run off. I don't think we can even make a general statement right now. I mean, this is a very big thing.
And I appreciate that, and we're obviously we weren't looking for any decisions. It's just, we just wanted to raise this as just to start the discussions.
I think Barbara's point that this is part of an aspect of a much bigger problem that's being worked on. Yeah. So why don't we keep this in mind and make sure that it surfaces in whatever study or report is generated. Does that sound all right, Barbara?
Yeah, I think maybe the DPW could communicate with the town committee about that and see how that intersects with what they're trying to do. They may have suggestions because they've been looking at road runoff issues in town and other places, not on Lieutenant Island Road specifically, but in general for all our smaller little embayments that feed into Wellfleet Harbor.
Right.
Yeah, we've definitely been in touch with the wastewater committee and also, looking into grants for, shellfish protected areas with the Shellfish Constable. Hillary's been involved with that too. So we're definitely in the loop on all of that. I just don't know how far along they are with this particular area of Lieutenant Island Road. We're kind of at a crossroad where this road has been in disrepair for quite some time, and it's unraveling now. So we're at a point where if we don't fix this road soon, we're going to be into a full reconstruction of the roadway, which is considerable money.
Well, it's becoming it's deteriorating to the point that it's a hazard in some parts of it.
Can I ask one more question, Leon? This is Hillary.
Certainly, Hillary.
I'm wondering if Kevin or Jay, maybe it might make sense for us to go back through old town meetings and see when this bylaw was put into place and try to better understand the intention of it, because I definitely don't think I was here, and I wonder if there was discussion that might give us a path forward, because I know Mark, Jay and I and Kevin have talked about the realities involved in actually designing to these standards. But maybe if we could better understand that, and maybe we could have a way to treat some of the stormwater, but not all of it, for the next 20 years.
I think that it would seem to me that the road is deteriorating rather far. We should treat this almost as if we would an emergency action. I mean, if we come up with a master plan later that requires different drainage or recharging or whatever, we may just have to look at that as something that we can retrofit. Would that be possible, Jay?
The only problem with that would be if we had to expand the drainage systems, we'd be tearing into roadways that we just resurfaced or repaired. So, that could be a kind of a detriment. I think what Hillary's saying is a good idea. Probably about a year ago, we tried to engage Dan Hort to evaluate this with town council, just to get their take on it. So perhaps we could go that avenue again, although we're kind of in limbo again. But
Fire chief will talk to you.
But I think Hillary's suggestion is a good one. If we can try and figure out a way to make sense of the bylaw and see what we can do there. What do you think about that, Kevin?
No, I think it makes sense because, as we talked about, right now we're at a sticking point. So, it's and with the condition of the road, we do need to try to come up with something as soon as we can.
Right.
But without understanding what the intent of the bylaw is, we're stuck.
Okay, well, I mean, this is a good opportunity to kind of revisit the project, get you guys refamiliarized with the whole intent of what we're trying to do. And we'll continue to plug away, move forward and see if we can, bring some more information back to the commission. Because I know this is a lot for you today. Obviously, it's a lot of text to consider and to digest. So if there's any suggestions from the board of anything that we can submit to you to get even further familiarized with what we're discussing now, please feel free to let me know or Kevin know.
Well, just so that I understand, I mean, from our perspective, the primary concern would be pollution to the wetlands or erosion. Is that correct, Barbara, do you think? You're muted, Barbara. Sorry.
I'm not an expert on this, but I think that road runoff is the big issue for me. I don't know about erosion, because there are properties on both sides of that road that were probably contributing more to erosion and probably impacting the wetland more than just the road itself. So I think it's pollution. That's
I totally agree with
runoff,
Barbara.
runoff, whatever you want to call it.
Road runoff is the
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Jay, and Kevin for bringing this to our attention and giving us the information. But right now, I don't know that we can do anything other than be sensitized to it and keep our eye on the bylaws and things as they move forward. Does anybody else have anything else to offer?
No, I think give us some time to have a look at the bylaw, see if we can understand the intention, and then bring the project back, because we know DPW is eager to get something going with this before the road is in complete disrepair. So,
Right. So this was this is a formal hearing, right? This is an NOI. So
Yeah.
we need a motion to continue. Anybody willing to do that?
So moved, Barbara.
All right, second.
second, John Cumbler.
Thank you. Barbara, how do you
Yes.
vote?
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
Mike.
I have to recuse because some of the wetland is Wellesley Conservation Trust.
Sure. Okay, and I say yes as well. I don't know that we can put a date on it, though. I think it just needs to be continued indefinitely, right?
That's acceptable to us, Kevin, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody for your time. I appreciate it. It's good to get this back on the agenda, and we'll continue to move this forward.
Thank you, Jay. It's nice to meet you, and Kevin too. Thank you.
You
Thank you all
too.
very
Take
much.
care.
Have a good night.
Barbara, we don't sign anything for a continuance?
No, we don't.
All right. The next one is Mr. Kimmick, 40 Ridgeview Drive. I see that he's online. Mr. Kimmick?
Yes. Yes. Hello. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Would you like to speak to this?
Just that I was unaware that I was even in a buffer zone. This is a family-owned property that I purchased in the late 2017. And this included with many other family properties located here in Wellfleet. We've been taking trees down my whole entire life with my uncle, my grandfather, cousins, etc. And I never knew that we were supposed to report anything or any such thing. And that they were dead yellow pines that had broken off and they were damaging the good trees below it and the wild blueberries. So I was just really trying to clean up my property, honestly.
When you purchased the property, was it fully wooded?
No, sir.
Leon, can I speak to that? I think I can show the property.
Okay.
As of October 2018, it looks completely covered by by tree cover.
Is that the location of the property, Mr. Kimmick?
Yes, 40 Ridgeview Drive is my property.
And this is a Google Earth from October 2018.
Okay.
So are you saying those are dead trees or?
I removed dead trees that had fallen in several storms and then were I mean, one fell and landed on the side of my house and took out the old deck. Am I not supposed to remove any of those trees, being a property owner, that are endangering my house?
Well, the normal procedure would be to put in an RDA or an NOI based on how many trees you want to remove or execute your plan on. And you would bring it before us and we would talk about remediation, because you are right in is this within the 50? I mean, a good part of it was within the 50, right?
It's within the 200-foot riverfront area, correct?
Pardon me?
Yes, and a lot of it's in the 100-foot buffer. To the,
Anything within the 100 foot.
to the bordering vegetated wetland.
I just want to see if I have a site plan that we can pull up. No, I don't have one.
We have the assessor's map.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna just pull that up just so we can have a, oh, you already have. Okay, perfect. There we go.
So it's 135 here.
Okay.
So we're talking about the southern half of that property. Is that right, Mr. Kimmick? I mean, below the dotted line there, that's where the wooded area was? Can you see that on your phone or?
Yeah, I'm zooming it in. Yeah, they were in the back corner of the house. The trees that we're discussing that were taken down, the three.
Well, what we're discussing is what happened between the time that picture was taken in 2000, was it 18, Mike?
Yes, yes.
And today. All of that is relevant, so.
And those were the trees, like I said, they're surrounding my house. They were falling over, breaking off. I had the roof redone. I redid the deck. There's new mahogany decks, red cedar shingles, windows, $40,000 worth of outside labor and materials on the exterior. So as I said, I didn't know that there was something that I had to request permission when they're hanging over the tree and endangering my property and my investment and my home. I thought that I had rights to just clean those trees up and get them out of there, especially when they were dead already. And as I apologize. I didn't realize that there was red tape I had to go through and I had to ask permission. So of course, if I had to do it again, I would ask permission, but I didn't know that. And as I said before, I've been taking trees off this property and many others in town with my family. And never once did I hear any of my elders say, oh, we got to talk to conservation about this. This is all new to me.
So I think if I can weigh in, because we received the complaint call and Doug and I went out there and spoke to Mr. Kimmick. We've spoken on more than one occasion, and I know it's not a satisfying response, but I truly do believe that he just didn't know. When we did alert him to the fact that it was a violation, he was very compliant. He got his paperwork right in. He paid the $300 fine, and we educated him on the proper process. So I don't think it was done maliciously or intentionally to skirt our regulation. I truly believe that he just didn't know. He's now aware. I don't think he'll make this mistake again.
Leon? Yeah, just to make Mr. Kimmick feel more comfortable about this. Now that you know, in the future, if you come to us, if it's a situation where it looks like tree is going to do damage to your property, we will, unless there's some very significant reason why we wouldn't, we'll say, fine, do it. It's not, we're not putting up red tape. What we're concerned about is people just cutting down very important vegetation, which protects the bank or protects the soil or, the atmosphere, etc. And we're just checking to make sure that people don't abuse the resource. if you come to us with a statement that this is a dead tree or a tree in danger of your house, there's not going to be a problem with us saying, yeah, take care of it. Just need to come to us first. That's the only issue.
Right, and I think we need to.
Understood. I wish that I had.
The resource and everybody in town.
Barbara?
Yes, now, that whole side of the house is, I understand you didn't know, and ignorance is not an excuse, but now you do know. And having a property, I think now you'll know to investigate what you can and cannot do on your property, because it's not just property rights. There's state and local environmental bylaws that have to be adhered to. But now that that whole area looks clear cut, and I'm asking if we should ask for some mitigation, because all we saw there was a complete lot full of what looked like sawdust, where there were once trees. So we've lost biomass, we've lost habitat, we've lost the ability of the tree roots to take up nutrients and to protect the wetlands. So is there some kind of mitigation that might be required here?
May I ask what habitats were ruined? Because now, since removing those trees, I have nothing but turkey and deer and wildlife that feed in there.
Yeah, but it was the habitat that was there before. So the pine trees that you had were habitats for all different other kinds of animals, not turkeys, not whatever you just said, but a different kind of habitat. So one of our jobs is to protect habitat as well. Even if it's habitat for caterpillars, it's still viable habitat.
Salamanders.
Understood. Okay.
It's also, I think, Leon, if I may, the question about erosion. Eventually, those wood chips are either going to support vegetation or they're going to get slowly washed down the hill. And so if you put in native species on the hillside, it would really protect your property from getting eroded as well.
However, I mean, everything grows like wildfire. I don't think that erosion's really an issue. What if I were to plant something there? What would you think is going to replace some dead pines? That's going to be like you said, that's those species that were there before are going to be like, oh yeah, here's a home again.
Well, I'm not a botanist, but you can plant
No, I'm
things,
not either.
plant things like some small trees, some blueberries, which you can harvest fruit from. There are a lot of native plants that really are very attractive and also attract animals to your property. But rather than just leaving it sawdust, I'm suggesting that there be some kind of a mitigation plan. And I'm not saying that we should decide it tonight, because I think it's something that you talk to, I hate to throw this on Hillary and Doug, but consult with the Conservation Department about what might be appropriate to plant there to make up for some of that biomass that was removed.
And how many plants are we talking about?
Well,
That's what you work out with Hillary.
That's the thing that you work out with. It really depends on, usually there's a formula that depends on how many trees were taken down. Since we don't know the total number of trees that were cut versus the ones that fell naturally, I think that would have to be some kind of a plan that you develop with the Conservation Department. Because we're not botanists that you can, and you're not a botanist, so you need to consult with other people about that.
Well, I mean, I'm willing to hear them out, but I don't really want to plant any more trees where trees were just dead and falling down. And
well, then
I think in lieu of trees, you could plant the lower growing shrubs just in a quantity that's, acceptable.
Right.
Okay.
And we're talking within the 100-foot buffer.
Right.
So that
200-foot riverbed.
So just in the area that we have jurisdiction over, not on any of your property that is not protected by the environmental bylaws.
Okay.
It could look beautiful there.
It is.
I think it looks beautiful as it is.
Well, without the sawdust, I mean, if you had plantings
Well,
there.
they're wood chips that'll eventually break down and
Yeah.
compost and mulch out, but
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
You'll get a lot of grasses and things, but we would like to have some mitigation for the trees that were removed.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is a motion to accept this NOI with the condition of.
It's an RD, it's an
It's
RDA.
an RDA? I thought it was an
Yeah.
NOI.
No, it's an RDA. And I can move that we approve the RDA for the removal of the dead and damaged trees with the condition that Mr. Kimmick consult the department about a mitigation plan and that he has a plan, which should we give him like a growing season to get some plants growing? How does that work, Hillary?
We can work with him through the office to come up with an acceptable plan.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Barbara, how do
I
you?
didn't catch the second, and I don't know what it is, a negative.
Okay, let's get it clear for Chris. Who wants to make the motion?
I made the motion and I think it's in the buffer zone, so that's a -3, Hillary?
It's in the resource area,
Resource
right?
areas?
Because it's in the riverfront area.
Oh, okay, so that's a 2 or?
2, please. Yep.
And I was the second, Ben.
Is that everything you need, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay,
Very.
all right. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. So we
Is there
have,
form here?
which
Yes.
form are we talking about here?
It's Form 2.
Form 2. Thank you,
Right.
Mr. Kimmick. I'm sure that we can get this worked out.
And I can contact Hillary and
Yes.
then take it from there.
Mhm.
Yep.
You'll be available tomorrow, Hillary?
I'm always available at some hour of the day. Yep. You have my cell
Okay.
phone. Just give me a call.
Let me write it down just to make sure that I do have it still.
If you call the office, they'll route it to you. I don't think everybody.
Oh, okay, yes.
I want to put it
right.
that far out there.
Understood.
Oh, boy, I'm gonna get Hillary's cell phone.
Yeah, thank you all for your time.
Gotta keep
All
it
right.
semi.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmick.
Take care.
Okay. Next one is Burns, map 22, parcel 18. It's an NOI. This was continued from a previous hearing. Front porch, new screen porch, driveway to be altered, etc. Who's here to speak to that?
Good afternoon, I'm Dave LaJoy.
Hi, David.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm just looking for the paperwork here on this particular one. Did we have more? Do
Yes,
have-
we had a new plan,
Okay,
revised plan.
all right. So, David, you want to walk us through that?
I will. The owners, the Burnses are here also listening in. At the last meeting, we talked a lot about the work that was being done within the 50-foot filter strip. It's an existing house. And we had originally proposed to extend the deck that's on the west side and the screen porch. But we removed that so that on the existing deck will be a screen porch, same size. We've also, this is to remove an existing driveway and replace it with lawn. And we changed the lawn area to be not an irrigated lawn, but a Cape Cod type lawn. There were 2 parking spaces proposed on the south side of the dwelling where we would pull in and turn towards the top of the bank. We've changed that so that it's now parallel to the top of the bank and further away from the bank. We also have a small area of plantings, prairie grass and bearberry. Still are asking for the proposed shed. And we'd like to discuss again the use of, or have a front porch on the east side of the house, on the other side of the wetland. And the wetland area that we have is the top of a coastal bank based on the flood zone and the existing topography. And the flood zone is elevation 13 that goes on the west side of the property. So the only thing we're really concerned about is erosion to the top of the bank or some type of impact on the flood zone.
Mhm.
And we submit that it's not. The porch will be on concrete piers. The new driveway is going to be stone, pervious stone. And we have a list of area impacts on the left-hand side of the page. We're basically taking out 1,700 square feet of existing driveway. The ornamental trees, the ornamental grasses and the new trees gives us a total improvement of 2,706 square feet. Be happy to answer any questions.
And as I recall, the fact that you're within a buffer zone is an anomaly of the terrain there, that you're actually quite a ways from any wetlands, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Leon,
So
may I?
it's- And you have, it seems like you've accommodated a lot of our concerns. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to comment? Barbara?
And I think Michael also had a comment.
Okay.
I think this is a much improved plan. I have a question. According to the plan, the total lot disturbed area is still over 6,000 square feet, new and existing, and you did decrease that. But our bylaws only allow 5,000 square foot threshold for allowable disturbance within the buffer zone, including previously disturbed and areas that we are permitting. So we're still over 1,000 square feet, which is a considerable amount. My question is this calculation in the buffer zone, or are you including the part of the lot that's outside of our jurisdiction in that calculation? And if so, what exactly is the disturbance within our jurisdiction?
It looks like the buffer zone covers almost everything.
Well,
That's
there is a section of the lot on the plot plan in the upper right that's outside of the buffer zone.
Right, but that's, everything else seems to be inside of it, right?
Right. So it still exceeds what we're allowed to permit.
Well, it does not, it does exceed it, but we've asked for a variance. And your bylaw clearly allows us to ask for a variance based on certain site conditions. And this is exactly one that needs this type of variance based on what happened. The existing dwelling was put within that area without anybody having any impact to the Conservation Commission. We have an existing driveway. Those situations aren't going to change whether this project is approved or not. And with the variance scenario, I believe you can still grant approval for the project and ask for mitigation, and that's what we're proposing to you.
Leon?
Any other comments from the commission?
Yes, I had some. First of all, when was the house built?
The Burns getting probably better. I believe it was in the late 1970s. Is that correct? No, I'm sorry.
This is Robin Burns. It was built in 1997. We went through the Conservation Commission and we met all the
My apologies.
requirements.
All right. And you moved the propane tank so that it's a little bit further from any possible flooding. Did you think about moving the generator as well? Since if there is going to be flooding, you don't want the generator to be flooded.
We moved the propane tank as part of the conversation that we had with David after the last meeting. I guess we could move the generator. The whole property's not in the floodplain, so we weren't really thinking in terms of flooding, but we could move it, I guess.
Yeah, the flood, the 100-year flood event is at elevation 13, and we're above that.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Leon?
Yes, John.
I'm not that comfortable with it. Are you literally burying the propane tank?
Yes.
I'm not very comfortable with that. We used to bury oil tanks and that proved to be a huge problem down the road. And my other question is about the deck. How, the existing deck, you're going to convert to a screened-in porch?
Yes.
Part of it. Is the, what's underneath the existing deck right now? How high off the ground is that? And what will be the impact of converting the deck to a screened-in porch in terms of runoff or vegetation around the existing deck?
We propose to have a roof runout to have gutters to dry wells or a stone trench, typical to what we have around all roofs. The propane is a little different than the oil tank in that propane is lighter, so that if there is a leak, it goes up into the air, not down into the water.
That's a good point.
I still don't feel comfortable with the propane tank being buried.
Okay. Did any other commissioners have anything to say?
Well, I would just say, sort of second Barbara's first remarks, that the plan is certainly much improved from what it was before. And I think they've made efforts to try to stay within the bylaws as much as possible.
I think that's true too. And I think that the reality of what the resources, or it's not a filter strip to a wetland, it's a filter strip above a flood zone. So I'm not quite sure of the distinction of that, but in seeing it, you look down there and it's just a grass covered lowland, but it's dry. So currently, do I hear a motion at all for this to accept or reject or to alter?
Yes, I would move that we approve the application for Burns map 22 parcel 18 to construct a new front porch, new screen, driveway to be altered, new in-ground propane tank, generator, and shed.
Do I hear a second? I'll second it. So we shall vote. Barbara?
I'm going to abstain.
Benjamin?
Yes.
John?
I can't vote for it. I'm going to abstain.
And Michael?
Yes.
And I would vote yes. So we do not have passage on this. John, your concern was with the propane tank being underground?
Well, I have three concerns. The underground propane tank, I have a little concern about the conversion of the deck to a screened-in porch, but my biggest concern is the area of disturbance, that we sort of tried to hold the line on area of disturbance, and I'm not exactly sure why we're making exception here. And until I have those questions answered, I don't feel comfortable voting one way or the other.
Could I speak?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Robin Burns, and this is my husband, OJ. And just to make clear, the screened-in porch on the existing deck would only cover half of the area, so it's not as much as you're thinking. I was very confused about the 6,000 square feet after the conversation at your last meeting. So I talked with David about that, and he explained to me that that primarily occurred when the house was built in 1997. We're not adding to the disturbance significantly. We're actually trying to improve by taking away a large chunk of what is currently driveway. There's nothing we can do about the 6,000 square feet because that's what happened when the house was built. So we're not making it worse, we're trying to make it better. And we're just stuck with it, you know, with that situation.
The reason I voted yes was because of the actual terrain and the condition of it. Independent of, if it were a filter strip going into a marsh, it would be a very different story. But the reality is this is just a flood zone that's normally dry and is untouched. So that's why I voted yes for it. And Barbara, your concerns would be the,
I'm towing the line about the disturbance. It started out exceeding our disturbed, what we currently permit. So in order to have any improvements, you'd have to like take away some of what's there. To me, you'd have to have some kind of trade-offs. So I really don't like to make exceptions and variances to our regulations, because I think that climate's going to change, things are going to change. I think these regulations are put in place for a good reason, and I don't feel comfortable giving a variance.
okay, good. I'm
Excuse
sorry
me.
to put you guys on the spot. I just want to make sure we all understand what the issues are.
Excuse me if I could.
Yes, David?
Basically, it's all lawn area and a driveway. And taking the 1,700 square feet of driveway out and replacing that with lawn must be improving the situation. The property now is completely vegetated. There are no bare spots anywhere. So the disturbance we're trying to improve on by eliminating a significant amount of driveway area, as well as the proposed plantings. Would more plantings be beneficial?
Yeah, I can kind of respond by saying why I said yes, which was that I think what's making the total disturbed area so large is the fact that the driveway is there, and it's still technically considered disturbed area in spite of it being a new lawn. And I would probably lean even closer to voting for a variance if the difference of total disturbed area that we need to is equal to the square footage of the planting area of prairie grass and bearberry. That would encourage me to say that this is in fact an improvement from the driveway, as opposed to a lawn, which would still, in my opinion, be considered an impacted area.
Right. Along with the nutrients that have to be added to a lawn to keep it growing around here. That's a very good point, Benjamin.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm glad Ben said that, because that could change how we view disturbed area. But right now, because it's a lawn, it's still disturbed.
Sorry, I was listening to you. You were saying that if we proposed more plantings, that would be sufficient?
Well, I'm saying you could undisturb the area by making it a natural vegetated area by putting in maybe some small trees, some shrubs, some plantings like that, instead of making a Cape Cod lawn.
I understand.
And it also produces more habitat. It has more ecological value. Trying to work with you here, David.
I understand. Ms. Burns, please say something. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that the lawn that we have on the left side that we had originally talked about as having 2 more places for cars, we removed that. But I mean, that's our lawn. And believe me, I've never added a single nutrient to that soil. It's not that I'm going to be out there with my, Scotch turf builder or anything. I'm just I wanted it to be natural. The reason that we have such a large driveway is that the people who put it in thought that eventually we could build a garage over there. Well, obviously we're not here to ask for a garage. And if it had been done the way I had wanted it to be done, we would have just had the 2 spaces where we had originally projected them, and not had that whole gravel driveway, which to me, I'm in complete agreement, what is disturbed land and looks terrible. And I'm trying to bring it back to something that is more like what is around us.
Yeah, we are not looking to put in a lush green lawn. I've told Jeremy Young this from the very first time we spoke with him. I want a Cape Cod scruffy, green thing that's going to die out in the summer. I want it to look like Wellfleet. I keep telling him I don't want it to look like Chatham.
Right.
We want it really rough and just
Wild.
the grass, the sort of grass that we have on the other side of the house was never planted. That was all
No.
just natural. It just sort of appeared over the course of the 20-something years that we've owned the house.
Right.
So we just want something to kind of hold down the sand, because we keep walking, gallons of sand into the house.
Right. Well, I think that we can I think the compromise would be is that instead of lawn, you have saltgrass and blueberries or bearberries or whatever, which would be a natural Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And not a natural Cape Cod, or not a Cape Cod residence with scruffy lawn. John, you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, if I will change to a yes, if we can do something about the lawn and also stop burying the propane tank. That could do it for me.
All right.
Thank you.
I think Hillary since we did not accept this as it is, can they come back with a modified plan on the same NOI? I can't hear you, Hillary.
Sorry, you had a complete vote. You would need to vote to reconsider. Someone needs to make a motion to reconsider the vote.
All right.
I
That has
move
to
that,
be
I
accepted.
move that we reconsider the vote.
Do I have a second?
Barbara.
All right. So what we're talking about is
Well, we should vote on that.
natural environment. Okay, so we'll have a vote. Barbara,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. So rather than closing the book on this, you can keep working the plan, I think.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your ethic.
I think you're close. I think there are just some things that we'd like to see.
Thank you very
You
much.
guys hear me?
Yes,
With John's concern about being buried with the propane tanks, I'm just gonna say, this is the second time I sat in a meeting, but I feel as though propane tanks are safer buried. They're
Because
not
of-
sitting up, they can't be driven into or anything like that. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah, I would think that a exploding propane tank would be better underground than next to the house. So,
That's, yeah.
and it's a really different issue than a very leaking oil tank. But I still respect John's concern.
Yeah, and I do too. I was just saying.
Yes, well, that's a good point. Okay,
All right,
so
thank
we'll
you.
look forward to seeing a revised plan.
So do we have to
Motion
vote
for continuing?
to
We
continue.
already
yes.
voted to
reconsider?
Reconsider.
reconsider. Do we want to?
I got one question, sorry. It's Jeremy Young, sorry.
Hi, Jeremy. Yes.
Could we just clarify then if the commission would like the tank buried or above ground? If it is above ground, there's going to have to be pilings to protect it from someone potentially driving off the edge of that parking area, not that they would.
Yeah.
If it was above ground, we would probably mitigate around the area regardless to create a screen from such an obstruction from their front porch entryway.
That makes sense.
I don't want to see the burns come back a fourth time and this just keep prolonging.
Yeah, I think we are closing on it. I'm not an expert on propane tanks. So
Leon, we could do a straw vote on the propane tank. I don't want to be the person making a big issue about this. There's a lot of reasons for my concern about burying. These things get lost over time. I
don't think this will get lost because it'll have a refill spot sticking up where they hook up to it. So we can do a straw vote just to see if how we feel as a commission. So I'll put you all on the spot by asking Barbara, what do you think?
The safest way possible, if it's above ground or below ground, that's not going to be a sticking point for me.
Okay. And Benjamin?
Yeah, I guess like that. I'm the same way. It's kind of either way. I'm not really an authority on the safety of that. I think there's good cases for both, but if it is going to be changed to above ground, then I think Jeremy brings up a good point that you know, that there would be, that would have to be arranged appropriately and possibly more plantings to screen it or something. So I would either way.
Already expressed concerns. John?
Yeah, I'm still not totally convinced that below ground.
Okay.
But if the rest of the committee is willing to let it be below ground, I'm not going to make them come back with above ground.
And Mike, how are you feeling?
Well, I think I would defer to the experts on this, but I think if we accept the propane tank below ground and just put an order of conditions saying instead of lawn, it should be natural vegetation, native vegetation, we might be able to pass it tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
And then my second concern would be is, you know, if we go and increase the area of new lawn, if we decrease the area of new lawn next to the prairie grass and bearberry to bring it down to that 5,000 square feet, you know, would that please the commission?
Well, please me. Here's one vote.
I think it would.
I mean, just to emphasize, you know, we are reducing, you know, probably by 50% of vehicular traffic going across, you know, such a large terrain.
Yeah, it's just that I think lawns are still semi-impervious to a degree, and there just needs to be more habitat to bring that square footage down.
I will change my abstention to a yes vote if they significantly reduce the lawn.
Okay.
So that is an order of conditions and then vote for this.
All right.
And I think we should emphasize it's equal to the difference that's needed to bring it to below 5,000 square feet.
Exactly.
Robin and Doug, are you in agreement of this?
Yep.
Well, we made a lot of progress here. So
Yes.
I will actually vote that we approve the NOI with those conditions
Okay.
that we just
Second.
mentioned.
Second, Michael.
All right. So do we vote again now since we've changed votes?
Yes,
Barbara?
Yes.
All right. Mike?
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay, so I think we have a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want you people to be happy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want the
We
ecology to be happy.
we need a supervisor for this project.
I'll supervise, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Form 5.
Form 5.
Leanne, can we just make another brief announcement that the 2 revetment projects at the end of the agenda have been.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, I forgot to do that. Boninger and Yedowitz, those are continued. So we won't be talking about those tonight.
Right.
Okay, so that was a Form 5.
Yes.
Okey-dokey. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Burns, for working with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the ham. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 265 Ridgeway. Is there somebody to represent that?
Yes, Dave LaJoy again.
Okay, David.
I apologize for misquoting about when that house was built. That was, my understanding was before then. My apologies.
No problem.
Okay, this is a property on Ridgeview Road that abuts the ocean, where we have a coastal bank. And there are 2 dwellings existing on the site now. We're within the buffer zone of the house that we'd like to move back out of the buffer zone to the far west side of the property. Typical access will be from the existing driveway on the south side up to where the old dwelling is. Probably would install the foundation for the new building back against the cliff road. And then typically with moving buildings, we'd elevate the existing building on cribbing network and then roll the building to the west up to where the new foundation will be, and then lower the house back on top of the new dwelling. My understanding is that the existing use on the site in terms of wastewater is 4 bedrooms total. And we have an existing system that has that capacity. It's a 1978 code system. So we'd be connecting the relocated building to the existing septic tank. They have a restrictive work limit. And be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody want to start out? Barbara?
Yeah, I just have a few questions. I think it's a great improvement. I'm glad they're doing this sooner rather than later. My only observation is that the site where they're moving the house is wooded now. There's a lot of vegetation there. So there'd be a lot of tree cutting in order to move the house back. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then there's no vegetation plan for where the current building is and how to mitigate for all the trees. Well, the trees that are coming down are not in our jurisdiction, I guess. So that's not an issue for us, but I think we just need to see a mitigation planting plan for where the current dwelling is, so that when it's gone, we see what's going to be there.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is there comments from abutters?
Leanne, may I ask one question first?
Certainly, Mike.
Yes, you talk about relocating the building, but it has a very different shape on the plan. Are you going to destroy the old one and put up a new one, or are you going to actually physically move it?
Yes. The building that we're moving is the same size as what's shown as the proposed relocated dwelling. It's just rotated. The existing dwelling has decks around it. On the west side, it has a deck on the for lack of a better word, second floor level, and it has some retaining walls, but those would all be removed. The same building is being taken from where it is now, twisted, and then twisted and moved back onto a new dwelling where we show it. Same building, same size.
Okay, well, then, as I understand it, the new building is outside of the buffer zone.
That's
Right.
correct. That's
So
correct.
so is it in our jurisdiction at all?
It's
No,
not.
no,
Removal.
It's just the disturbance within the
Right.
buffer zone that we need to accommodate. Otherwise, yes, it's not. So it sounds like Barbara's suggestion for a way to stabilize the ground where the house was. Will all the foundation and everything be removed? Of the
Yes,
old? Okay.
yes,
So that whole area needs to be revegetated so that the cliff doesn't work its way, the bluff doesn't work its way up to the house again.
that's correct. We'll provide that.
Is there any other comments from anyone?
We do have a letter from Jeannie Campus, and she's on the line if we
Yes.
take
Ms.
her.
Campos, would you like to say something?
Hi, yes, good evening, members of the commission. My name is Jeannie Campus. I'm an attorney at Nutter, McLennan and Fish. I'm here tonight on behalf of Karen Elving. She owns the property at 255 Ridgeway Road. It's located due west of the applicant's property, separated by the Paper Way, Cliff Road. As I submitted a letter yesterday, I'll try to just briefly touch upon some of the highlights here tonight. But as set forth in the letter, our main concerns are that this application is missing a lot of information, some of which you have already touched upon, and some of which I believe still needs to be provided by the applicant before you can engage in a meaningful review. I think a brief history of the permitting on this site may be helpful for context. Ms. Behan also owns property to the north of this. It was formerly addressed as 280 Pilgrim Road. In 2012, she acquired the property at 265 Ridgeway Road and immediately embarked upon a rather large permitting project, which involved the raising of the dwelling at 280 Pilgrim Road, the combination of the two parcels, 280 and 265, by A&R plan endorsed by the planning board, and also then significant improvements, including the addition of bedrooms to the two existing dwellings at 265. In 2013, the ZBA approved the special permit relief, noting that a septic plan showing a new 6-bedroom septic had been approved by both the commission, you guys, and the Board of Health. However, that septic appears to have never been installed. And in fact, the leaching system shown for that proposed 6-bedroom septic is in the location of where the relocated house is to be placed. So the 2013 ZBA decision appears to have been predicated on the fact that the increase in bedrooms that were being proposed was going to be accommodated through this installation of a new 6-bedroom septic, which was never installed, and also conditioned upon this A&R plan being endorsed by the planning board, combining the two lots. Now, this site plan in front of us doesn't show the entire property. The property also includes now this 280 Pilgrim Road, as noted by the assessors on the current assessors cards. And it also, the property includes 5 bedrooms as noted on the current assessors cards. And I've attached those to the letter. So I believe at least there's a total of 5 bedrooms on the site. And so the information regarding the septic on the plan should be confirmed to confirm the bedroom count. And as well, the existing septic capacity should be confirmed to determine whether it can accommodate what's currently existing on site. And I heard Mr. LaJoy say that the dwelling that's relocated is the same as the dwelling that's there. It's just going to be rotated. But when I look at this, even if I rotate it, it still looks different and even arguably larger. So to the extent that there are alterations to this house, including any bedrooms, those details need to be provided so that everyone can determine whether the septic has sufficient capacity. I note that, to the extent a new septic would be required, I think there's no question that it would be within your jurisdiction given the constraints on the site. Those I think are the big things. I noted too in the letter that a mitigation plan and landscaping plan should be required. The only other thing I'll point out is what's not shown on the plan is that the drive doesn't end where it's shown. It continues up all the way to where the existing dwelling is. There's kind of like a fenced in area even that's partially within the buffer. And so if that area is no longer needed for parking because the houses are located further back on the lot, and also I believe the intent back in 2013 was to park on the parcel at 280 Pilgrim, maybe that area can also be mitigated as part of this project. My clients also has other concerns, which I've noted, and I understand they're completely outside of your jurisdiction, but I do think it's important for you to be aware of this because some of the actions have caused concern, at least to my client, and should be looked at in terms of at least the septic capacity and making sure that the plan is accurate and the bedroom count's accurate and that the plan shows the entire property. With that, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are you saying that a previous certificate of compliance was not met? Because is that what you're saying?
I didn't see a certificate of compliance recorded. I saw an order of conditions recorded at the registry, but it doesn't appear there was ever any work done or any certificate of compliance applied for or approved. Barbara,
thank you.
Wouldn't this project trigger review by the Board of Health?
Yes.
Okay, so I would think that they would be the ones to deal with the bedrooms and septic and not us.
I think my preference would be that the septic drainage field be moved back towards the road rather than right toward, down towards the filter strip. But you're right, the rest of it is all built zoning and health. Our concern would be that the area within the buffer zone is restored to some healthy environment that will hold and provide, stabilization for that area. Barbara?
I do agree that the plan should reflect what's there and what will be there. And I just noticed that the mention of the driveway, the cars were parking further into the lot than is depicted here. So there are a lot of inconsistencies between the plan and how the property is currently being used.
Right. And I agree that the area that it looks like it goes off towards the word area, I take it that was, well, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but yes, if there's driveway that goes back to the original dwelling, I would think that should be a subject for remediation as well.
Leon?
Yes, sir.
I actually am, even before it was mentioned, was going to bring up the question of the septic system. This is our concern. This is very close to the coastal bank. The leach pit is even closer to the coastal bank. I do have real concerns about the septic system. And I think I can't vote for this until those concerns have been addressed.
Can I just ask a question? It looks like the property was purchased in 2012 and the new septic was designed in 2012. So I think it warrants a look through maybe meeting minutes of the Board of Health to understand what that upgrade was predicated on. So was it because the property was transferred that the new septic system was to go in? Was one of the systems not functioning properly? I'm not familiar enough with the two sites to understand that, but David, maybe you are?
Yes. At the time in 2012, or actually 2013, there was main house and a smaller cottage with a proposed addition. And all of that was predicated on a 6-bedroom septic system, and we designed a septic system for it, and got variances for it. The addition was put on, but the septic system was never installed. And there was supposed to be 3 bedrooms in the main house and in the cottage. My understanding now is that there's only 2. So they haven't done what the approved plan was for, but that was because they haven't actually changed the number of bedrooms. There were 4 existing bedrooms at that time.
But were the septic systems inspected back in 2012 and passed an inspection, or did they opt for this with an install instead of that?
Yeah, they weren't gonna inspect it because they're gonna put a new system in.
Okay, so then there is an outstanding issue here. So
Yes.
we have
Yes.
to.
So that,
And
whatever
I,
we do has to be predicated on the completion of that, or the meeting of those conditions.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Did you have something, John?
No,
I'm sorry. I think that there were some very good points brought up by Ms. Campus. That in I think the sewer and the remediation and what to do about any driveways that go back into the buffer zone are what we need to deal with. Does that sum it up for most of the commission?
Yeah, so you're suggesting a continuation until we get these?
I think we're going to need it. I think that this plot doesn't really show us all the information that we need.
And we also need a new planting plan anyways, so.
Yes, we do. So yes, I'm suggesting we continue this. I move that we continue 265 Ridgeway.
Also, I'd like the square footage of the cottage, the proposed new cottage and the old cottage, so we know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
Square footage of the cottage and decks.
Yep. That's gonna be nothing
Well,
but a gift.
they won't be in our jurisdiction, John.
Right.
So-
We can ask for
Okay.
this.
I'll
We
be
can
happy to
ask-
provide that to you.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can also take that into account that that's property that's been remediated. Mr. Zender, you have something to say?
You're muted.
You're muted. You're still muted. We can't hear you.
You should
Is that
know
better,
by now,
Mr.
Ben.
Chair?
That's better.
I'm sorry for that. I was muting while I listened. My name is Ben Zender, and I'm here on behalf of Susan Bean. And, we can provide the size of the existing house, the proposed house, but I'm just not sure that that has anything to do with the mandate of this board or the regulations under which you work. The proposed structure, whether it gets bigger or smaller, has nothing to do with what you're doing. I think what's of concern to the board, or what should be of concern, is what is being removed from within the jurisdiction of the board, and what's being done to mitigate and remediate those areas that are being disturbed in the process. So I'll talk with my clients about providing that, but we'll certainly provide whatever information we think we can.
And I'd like to see the site plan show the existing driveways and things like that, and an explanation of what's going to happen to that.
I think that makes
Planting.
sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Are there any other comments before we take a vote on continuance? Okay. I move that we continue the NOI for 265 Ridgeway Road pending a remediation plan or planting plan and additions to the site plan to show where the existing driveways are and what's going to happen to them. Do I have a second?
Second,
All right.
Michael.
All right, Barbara,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I also vote yes.
When do you want that continued to?
Well, if you want to, yes. Do we want to continue? Can you get us the information we need in a week? Because that's when the documents will
Right,
be.
yeah.
I'd like to ask for a month.
All right. So that, what would the date be on that, Hillary?
Ooh, if it's not 5/19, it's sometime in June, right? June. How about June 2nd?
All right. So we're going to continue to June 2nd.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Thank you
I
very
guess you- Okay, you got what you need then, right?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
Form 2,
No forms.
no form.
No form.
No.
Whoa. Victory for the
All right.
no forms.
Thank you all involved. I hope you all felt like your opinions were listened to.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda is,
Hey, the reason why, and I couldn't get myself unmuted, I don't know. I'd never used Zoom before, so
Oh, God bless you. Really? Are you that person you heard about?
I'm that person.
got it worked out now.
Actually, never did it. But anyway, I did listen to the entire meeting, but somehow I couldn't get myself to speak. But the reason why we didn't do the septic was because we have one bedroom. The cottage, remember when we asked to add the bedroom? There was only truly a one bedroom with a closet in the downstairs. And because the door into the house is in what we use as a bedroom, but it is not an official bedroom because it has an access door in and out of it. And it doesn't have a closet.
Well, I think your plan is going to have to update the need for a new septic system.
Yes. Yes, oh yeah.
And
Sounds
we're all
like
concerned, you
you're also
desperately,
talking to Ben Zender at the same time.
pardon me, Hillary?
Susan, are you also having a conversation with Ben?
Right. It is located probably, you know, I see where their concern is that it's.
He's having a conversation with Ben Zender and us.
This would be the first thing to go, you know. But,
Can-
and so, you know, like Dave and I talked, there has to be a plan.
Ms.
for it.
Bean, can you mute yourself, please? Now everything is being heard.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute her and I think we should move on.
Yes.
Yep, I do too.
Thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
I think we have one more hearing tonight. And that would be McQuillan Augusta, 5 East Street, map 41, parcel 160, and NOI for rebuilding existing dwelling. I think we've heard this. No, we haven't heard this. And foundation to construct addition and decking. Is there anyone to represent that?
Yes, good evening. My name is Matt Farrell from O'Reilly and Associates.
Hi there.
I'll be representing Lucy McQuilkin and Charles Augusta. I believe both of them are on the call, and another proponent, Jean McKnight, I think is also on the call.
Yes.
So this property contains an existing single-family dwelling. There's approximately 20,000 square feet of land area. The house was built, I believe, in 1991, early 90s. The wetland resources originate across the street or across Lieutenant's Island Road, which is a dirt road. And there is a salt marsh. And as you move landward, land subject to coastal storm flowage, a coastal bank, and then eventually the Wellfleet Harbor ACEC. The 50 and 100-foot buffer zones have been measured from the coastal bank. We also show another dash line for where the ACEC falls on the lot. The proposal is to keep the existing concrete foundation. We filed two site plans, the existing condition plan, and then a proposed condition plan, just so you could kind of see how the site is developed. And then there's also a third sheet for details and planting plan. Yeah, so the proposal is to keep the existing concrete foundation, complete some additions to that foundation, and then construct a new wood frame structure, a single, ranch style structure on the new foundation. that would meet current building code. The floor plan within the dwelling will be reworked. There's an existing, it's an existing 2-bedroom, and it will remain at a 2-bedroom after we are done. On the north side of the dwelling, we're proposing a screened porch on sonotubes. And on the east northeast side of the dwelling, we're proposing a deck with stairs that access the ground in a couple of places. Sheet 3 includes an area table showing kind of our existing and proposed areas in the 50 and 100 foot, or in the 50 to 100 foot buffer zones and within the ACEC. So the proposal, we're adding about 53 square feet of new dwelling in the 100-foot buffer zone and about 1,579 square feet of deck, screened porch, and natural walkways for a total in the right-hand column of 1,632 being added. We are also, in the next column, we are adding about 404 square feet in the ACEC, which is basically made up of proposed deck and the natural walkway around the deck. So sheet 3 also includes a planting detail. Basically, we're at about 1,600 square feet of proposals, and we're proposing to plant 1,600 square feet of plantings plus or minus. So that the proposal to plant, there's some areas around the house that we're proposing about 25 shrubs. And then we're also proposing some native grasses and or American beach grass. And then we're proposing out parallel to Lieutenant Island Road, approximately 25 native indigenous shrubs. I kind of looked up shrubs that are salt tolerant and shade tolerant, because that area has existing mature vegetation, mostly pine trees. And the proposal there is just to kind of add the 25 shrubs to the existing area without disturbing any native existing vegetation or any of the existing pine trees. So as stated, our disturbances are 1,632. Our mitigation is approximately 1,656 square feet. We're not proposing any fill or grading. We're proposing to handle all the roof runoff with dry wells and underground leaching facilities, which are shown on the proposed site plan on page 2. See, we have filed with Natural Heritage as required. We have not heard back from them yet. We did receive a DEP file number in the past few days. I guess at this, I'll open up to questions from the commission.
Well, the first thing that I noticed was that you're pushing your deck right out to the edge of the forest where there are trees. Do you expect that those trees will have to be removed later on because they?
If you look on sheet 2, oh, you mean, if you look on sheet 2, it shows our proposed limit of work, and it goes into the existing vegetation just a little bit, but I'm not suspecting or proposing that any trees be removed. But I honestly have not been to the site since it was staked, and I assume if you guys have been there, you might tell me.
Well, it looked like it was staked properly. We had a good view of a good grasp on what was predicted and or what was being presented. My concern is that you're extending the deck a huge amount out into the woods, so that then the existing trees will be considered a hazard to your deck. And I guess I question why the deck has to be massive, because that is also a disruption to the environment. So that's my concerns, I think. Anybody else on the commission have any thoughts? Barbara?
Yeah, I think we all had the same observation that the deck will go right up to the tree line of some massive pine trees. I have two other issues. The planting plan, do you have any like a survival estimate, or will they be replanting if like half the plants don't take? Is there any follow-up for the planting? And also, because this is diamondback terrapin habitat, time of year restrictions would have to be imposed. And I don't know if Natural Heritage is going to come up with that, but those roads on Lieutenant Island in June and July are, that's where we have a lot of roadkill of a state threatened species. And also in the fall, September and October, when the baby turtles emerge. So I would think that there would have to be some time of year restrictions on this project as well.
Leon, I have a question.
Yes, Mike, sorry.
So the area between the house and the road, which shows on the screen now, there are a lot of very large trees in there, and it's going to be an issue about the view. If those trees continue to grow, you're going to find the house not being able to see the water, which I assume is why Mr. McQuillan has purchased this. Are you planning to take down any of those pine trees?
There's no proposal to take any of the existing pine trees now.
So if we put an order of conditions that you couldn't cut down any of those trees, that would be acceptable?
Yes. Obviously, if there was a danger to the house.
These are from the house outward past what you call the cleared zone, which actually has some trees in it. And
yeah.
bushes.
I mean, yeah, there was no discussion even or proposal to take any of those trees down. And you can kind of notice the way I showed my mitigation. I'm trying to plant around those existing trees and not disturb any of the native vegetation.
Yes, Barbara?
I just want to say to thank Mr. Farrell for a nice plan that showed the areas of disturbance before, after. So I think I like to see this kind of plan where we don't have to fill in the blanks about what's going to happen.
Thank you. Yes, it seems to be very well prepared. Okay, so I heard one mention of a condition that the trees are not to be damaged. Is there any other thing that we can look at?
Well, we need Natural Heritage before this can be approved, right? Or we
Okay.
can condition it upon approval.
We usually wait until we get the letter just to make sure.
Okay. And what about the time of year for turtles? Most projects on Lieutenant Island have these restrictions.
My guess is that would come in the Natural Heritage letter, and if it does not, then we could impose our own time of year restrictions.
All right.
And another condition which I would like to see is to state this is no longer a pre-1978 house. It's a post-1978 house.
Yep, this is a new house.
Yep.
Because saying that you're building on the same foundation doesn't mean much when it's all up on posts. It's not like you have a basement or a poured foundation, right?
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The house was built in 1991, so it's already post 1978.
Oh, okay.
Very good, thank you.
Right. That's good. John.
Yeah, this is a huge deck that when I looked at where it was staked, there were at least 3 trees that will have to come down. Well, definitely 1, but probably 3. And I'm concerned that more trees will be coming down in the future, even if we condition it, because there'll be a threat to the deck with storms. This is facing we get fairly strong winds coming off of the bay, and it's going to hit those trees, which are going to threaten the deck. So there's going to be more trees that are going to, come before us with it's danger of the deck. So I would like something more than, I like more addressed about the problem with, and the reason why we're okaying such a huge deck in the 100-foot buffer zone. Other than that, I didn't have any problem with it.
We have a brief pause while our chair comes back.
Let's see. Also, part of the screen porch is in our jurisdiction as well.
John, is
I'm sorry for
your,
abandoning you there.
I just wanted to respond to John,
Okay,
the question. Is the concern that a tree would come down and mess up the deck and then they would have to come back and apply for a new permit because of that?
My concern is that with the deck extending into, a treed area, even the trees they're not taking down to build the deck are going to be a threat to the deck.
right.
So they'll come.
Holding the deck up to a threat.
Right. So that's, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, that was my concern too, is that we're just setting ourselves up for the next phase. In that area, it's one of concern. So where do we go with this? What's the commission's feelings? We have a planting maintenance, or in addition to the planting plan, to talk about percentages of plant survival, etc. We have concerns about the deck. I'm not sure that we can do much about that.
Well, I personally would like to see them come back with a less expansive deck that doesn't impinge so much into the woodland. I'm willing to let them have the proposed screened-in porch, which is also within the 100-foot buffer, but this huge deck seems to me is going to cause an awful lot of disturbance that within the 100-foot buffer that I don't know if we really want to say okay to.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to add to this discussion?
Okay, put me on camera. Great. Hi,
Hello.
this is Lucy McQuilkin and Chuck Augusta, the homeowners. I just wanted to clarify on the deck, in case it wasn't clear, that it comes down to ground level. The purpose of the deck being gradually lowered to ground level is to make it so that you don't have to have a railing. So it's not a up high deck that if a tree fell on it would destroy it. It's at ground level at that point. Just making that clarification.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like a nice design. I'll entertain a motion.
Well, did Hillary say we should wait for the national?
Yeah, we have to
resources?
wait anyway, so we have to continue. So
Yeah, we
I'll-
have to wait for natural heritage before we can vote. So maybe perhaps Matt could look at the plan, see if there's any way of scaling back a bit from the trees and continue it to our next meeting, provided we hear from natural heritage by then.
Okay.
Yeah, I certainly will talk to these folks about the deck and maybe scaling it back. And yeah, we need to hear back from Natural Heritage. I think we filed on April 15th, so we should hear back by May 15th.
Yeah.
Usually have 30 days. So continuance to whenever your next meeting is, I guess.
The next meeting is May 19th, so we would need any materials in next Wednesday if you wanted to come to May 19th, or June 2nd is after that.
June 2nd would be safer for you.
Probably. I think June 2nd would work. for
Okay,
us.
great. Thank you.
So I move that we continue until June 2nd, the McQuillan Augusta application for an NOI.
Second,
Anybody else?
Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. So we have a plan. We'll wait for
Thank you very
Harry.
much.
We'll look
folks.
at the
Have a good
deck.
night.
before. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
So I move that we
Back to business.
adjourn the session and we can reopen a business session.
Second.
Pardon me, we need to continue Udovitz and,
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
right. Okay. I move, what are we waiting for on Udowitz?
Bob took a river trip in Montana and was getting delayed in papers, and I don't know. He just asked for a continuance.
Okay, and how about Beringer?
Behringer, we need more members on the commission to take a adequate vote on Behringer, because Mike Fisher has to recuse himself, and that doesn't leave them very much leeway in getting a project approved or denied, because there's only 4 of you that could vote on it. So they're just
Could Mike file one of those no conflict of interest forms?
Could, except that
I
it's,
think on this one, it's a little weird because the project is going on Conservation Trust property. So
Oh, okay. All
it's
right.
not just a butter issue, it's more direct.
Okay, all right.
All right, so can I hear a motion to,
Continue. I move that we continue Udowitz.
75?
Second, John Cumbler.
All right, Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
when, what date?
So, that's a good
Let's
question.
go to May 19.
Yeah. Okay, John, you said yes?
Yes.
Mike, Benjamin,
Yes.
Mike,
yes.
and me also, yes. Beringer. Okay, so do I hear a motion for Beringer?
That
Do we
one's
know-
19 as well.
I
So
move that
moved.
we continue Beringer to May 19th. I mean-
Second, John Cumbler.
Okay, Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes, yes.
John,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
and Mike.
Recuse.
But
Recused?
how would we have another person by then?
Well, I don't think we will, but I guess it's wishful thinking. We've got some folks in the pipeline we're working, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right, if any of you know.
Leon says yes on the continuance.
Oh, Hillary, one side note. I expire, I think, at the end of June, and I asked for.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I asked for a reappointment from the select board, but I haven't been following.
Okay, I'll I can follow up.
I like your fish behind you, John.
Are we in business meeting?
Not yet.
All
Are
right,
we?
before we get to business meeting, have we adjourned the public hearing?
Yeah, we have not yet.
Okay, I move we adjourn the public hearings.
Second, Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and me, yes.
All right, before we get into the formal business meeting, can I give a very brief historical statement here?
Sure.
Okay. When cities first were confronted with storm runoff in the 19th century, they put in sewer lines that went directly to the nearest water source. In the middle of the 20th century, when that became problematic because of the pollution of the water surface, they developed sewage treatment systems, and I will avoid telling you all the legal story behind that. But when they set up the sewer treatment system, they put in interceptor lines. And let me say, and back at the end of the 19th century, when they were putting in the storm sewer lines, there was some debate of whether they should have a dual system, which is a separate system for sewage and a separate system for storm runoff. And they decided the cheap way to go was to have a combined system, which was storm and sewage. So then in the middle of the 20th century, when they brought in treatment plants, they had a sewer system which was designed to carry both wastewater and sewage. That led them to put in the interceptor lines, which basically were underneath the old sewer lines so that the sewage would drop down into them and then go to the central treatment system. But then the volume became a concern. So basically they built treatment centers to handle the average volume of water flowing through the system. And when you had storms, the excess water would then just run out into the streams the way they did before they put in the interceptor lines. That's what created the problems of the end of the 20th century, which now are forcing cities to create from scratch dual systems where they have separate sewage systems for runoff. The reason I'm giving this brief history is it was a big mistake back in the end of the 19th century to put in the combined system to start with. And even though people like Colonel Waring were saying use a dual system, everyone went for the cheap, which was the combined system, which is now causing huge headaches. When we think of the future, I think we have to keep in mind not to plan for what looks okay now, but what it's going to look like in the future. That's my comment.
And thank you for that. That was very informative, and I agree. We'll all do that to the best of our ability. I'll brush off my crystal ball.
Well, no, I'm just thinking in terms of when we think about Lieutenant Island. I'm
Right.
very
No, I hear you.
to get that road paved, but I think we should be very careful we don't set up a situation which in the future will cause us more problems.
Right. I think that's a good idea. Barbara, do we need to reopen the,
Yes, I move that we reopen the business meeting.
do I hear a second?
Second, Michael.
Ben.
Okay, Barbara?
Yeah, I have a bunch of things that weren't
No,
resolved.
you have to vote.
Let's
You have to
first,
vote.
Barbara.
Oh, yes.
John,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. So we're now, the business meeting is resumed. Okay, Barbara, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, there were some things that were not resolved last meeting because Hillary wasn't here and we didn't get answers to. And I'll be very quick about it. One is I want to find out if Hillary resolved the ownership of the Field Point path to the beach.
I did not. I saw the email from the state about their piece, but I did not resolve the ownership. It's tricky. It's trickier than it looks, I think.
I think so too. Because I'm wondering if we could have our own sign there where people were putting the vessels, but I don't know whose property that would be on.
I'm not opposed to just planting the sign in and seeing how it works. The state said they would put a sign in as well.
Right.
So, I mean, if someone vandalizes our sign and takes it down, so be it. The state sign will hopefully still be there.
Okay, that's one question. Another question is, I'm doing the important ones first. Has there been any resolution for the stairs on the beach at 1400 Chickasaw Neck Road?
Not yet.
Okay, so
We
that's
did
still
send a letter.
pending.
Yeah.
That's just the one just north of the.
Right.
No, it's not the one just north. It's just north of Weller.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
True north.
Yeah.
Okay, and the shower on Kendrick that I told Doug about, did he take a look at that? A new shower on Kendrick?
That one's not ringing a bell. I will ask him tomorrow.
Okay, and 426 Black Pond Road, the parking?
Yep,
Is-
we're working on that one.
Or is there another access to that property?
There's another driveway, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. Is it in from?
Just right beyond it. Yeah, it's just right beyond it.
Because I haven't seen another driveway there, but if it's on the plan,
No,
It
there
may-
definitely is.
it may be on the Churro part because the town just splits right near that property.
Yep, we'll get back in touch with those guys.
Okay, and then I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. The Park Service has tagged all the boats on Gull Pond Road Gull Pond rather, that are illegally stored, and they're going to be taking them away. They're giving people time to remove them. So there's progress about vessel storage on Gull Pond.
Well
But,
done.
but,
Good job.
but the homeowners were saying that, well, they're just there temporarily because we're going to put them on moorings in the pond. So that brings the next issue up is that going to be our next campaign? You need a permit to moor a raft or a boat. I don't want to start this debate tonight, but I think we've threatened to go there for years now, and we really haven't. But I think the harbor master was going to weigh in on whether that's his jurisdiction. Laura McKean seems to think it is.
So I talked to Will at length about this mooring and floats issue not that long ago. And he and I committed to looking at it closer this coming winter. And we also have an inquiry in from a gentleman, Robert Shapiro, on Long Pond, who needs to replace his float that he's had. So I have sent Doug out to have a look because he needs to float his raft over from the town landing and drive a vehicle down to the pond's edge to unload it and then paddle it across. He claims that it goes in an area of the pond where there's no vegetation. It's attached to his land, not the bottom of the pond, and he floats it up onto the land in the winter. So Barbara, I think you know more about this location than I.
Yes, I do.
Perhaps we can put that on our docket for next meeting to talk about further.
Okay, and then I just want to announce that I got the brochures, and I want to thank Jordan Halloran for doing a terrific job. And the vessel brochures are going out with the beach stickers. So anyone who gets a beach sticker will get one of those. They've also got them now at the Shellfish Department, at the Harbor Masters. I put one in, every selectman's going to get one because one of our select board members feels it's their purview to have control over town landings. So all the select people got them. And then I'm going to bring some to the kayak rental places and things like that. So we made a lot of progress with that.
Great
So,
job.
and then one other announcement, I want you all to know that Helen Wilson asked me to share our minutes from the executive session that we had on the Blosh House, because the shared meeting with the select board, because they developed a set of minutes that didn't make sense to Helen. Because the person who was taking the minutes wasn't familiar with the case or the names or anything. And Helen consulted with the attorneys, the town attorneys, and they said that was fine because all select board members were at the same meeting. So they're not going to see anything in our minutes that they didn't hear themselves. So I just wanted you to know that I shared them with the permission of the attorney because Helen wanted a clearer record of what happened during that joint session. And she also said that we should be approving those executive session minutes. We don't have to post them, but ours are still all in draft form. So I just want to throw that out there. We never approved any of them. We edited them, we shared them, but we didn't vote to approve them. So I don't know if
all of our executives?
she thinks that we have to approve them. We don't have to post them. But I don't know the regulations.
I don't know either. That's an open meeting law kind of thing. I trust she knows it though.
So we have a number of sets of those meeting minutes that have never been approved. And some members of the commission, I don't even think were here to even approve them. So I don't even know if we have a quorum to approve them.
Well, then I think they stay in draft form. The draft becomes the final, right? If we can't approve them.
I don't know. I don't know the regulations. So.
Okay, we can hone in on that.
Okay, so I'm sorry to take up more time, but these were all unresolved that I've been carrying, from meeting to meeting. So I just wanted to bring them up again.
Well,
And I
thank you,
think Leon, you had something too.
Yes,
right?
I had one thing. I talked with Dennis O'Connell today, and he just wanted to touch base with the fact that the WCT, the Conservation Commission, and I think it's the OST.
The Open Space Committee.
Pardon me?
Open Space Committee.
Yeah, oh, okay. We all have lands that are intermixed in some areas where there's trails that connect them. And that in the past, we've all worked together on that. And generally the WCT takes care of, like if somebody wants a special guided hike through there, they would go to them. And he just wanted to make sure that with the new turnover and the new personnel, that we all are in agreement of continuing that collegial arrangement where essentially they play kind of a lead on things, and they don't feel that they need to tell us about every little thing like that
Nope.
goes on.
Nope, I think that's good. It's worked well over the years.
Yeah, and I assured him that I thought that would be the case, and I would bring any concerns to him. But it sounds like, does anybody have any concerns about that?
Nope.
Okay, that's it then. I'll tell him that it's a thumbs up. I figured it would be. I mean,
For sure.
they're doing the lion's share of it. We just happen to be responsible for some of the land. I would like to move to adjourn the business meeting for tonight. Do I hear a second?
Second, Michael.
All right, Barbara,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I as well say yes. Thank you all. It's a long meeting.
Yeah. good.
they've
Business
all-
meeting took way
Everybody did a
longer than
great
it
job.
needed to.
And
Yeah, we didn't even hear the two big. biggest-
I'm gonna stop our recording just because I
Yes.
Sure.